werewolf dancing, and dancing together too. Like a lot of people, you think, werewolf only have to dance by themselves, but werewolves can dance together. Not in groups, I don't think, where they, one of them, where they dance like in a group and then one of them gets in the middle of a circle and like, does their best moves and then they get out and the next werewolf goes in. I don't think it's like that, but I think it would be neat actually if a scientist, or somebody with scientific information about wolves and werewolves, which are, I'm guessing, just fucking gangster wolves, really, or wolves, that know where they are, as opposed to wolves that are just kind of, being willy-nilly out there, lost wolves. But werewolves, if they could set up music out there in the wild and then have cameras hidden and see if these animals would dance. And of course, I know that these animals aren't going to dance to the level that I'm thinking, with the circle and one of them gets in the middle and does the, the Bernie or the, the Running Man or the whatever, the twerking or whatever. I know animals aren't going to do that, but just to see how they would behave with music around. Because one thing that we don't get to see a lot when you think about it is wild animals with music. We don't. We see a lot of wild animals just, doing stuff, and wild animals that are put to music later on. But I feel like we don't get to see a lot of wild animals with music. So that would be something I think interesting to see. If you're hearing a noise right now, I'm just cutting on my third camera. That's all that is. Okay, cool. Thank you guys for joining us. Happy Halloween. It's here, and it's Monday, and it's October 30th. And I know that my nieces and nephews are going trick-or-treating today down there in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. And I want to let you know out of the gate, thank you to our charter sponsor. That's Gray Block Pizza, 1811 Pico Boulevard in Los Angeles, on your way to the beach. Okay? They got the Buster. They got the Zingaro, the deep cheese. So you can meet yourself up, or you can go with that famous salad pizza if you're leaning out for a special quinceañera or for a funeral. Show up at death's doorstep looking sleek, you little dark animal. If you're Italian, if you're not, doesn't matter. It's the place. Gray Block Pizza, Grey, blockpizza.com. Order online when you're in Los Angeles. And we're happy to have them, and I'm happy to have you guys. Happy Halloween. Man, I had a wild weekend, I'm going to tell you that. I went to, first I was honestly feeling like not doing anything. I'll be honest with you. What happened was, I came in Friday night, and Saturday I just woke up. I didn't really feel like doing much, but a friend of mine invited me to go to El Dia de los Muertos at the Hollywood Cemetery in Los Angeles. And so next thing you know, I'm out there, and I got to say this. If you're going to die Mexican. That's the way to die. On Halloween, this whole cemetery, obviously the cemetery have dead people in it, and it had a lot of, they have some celebrities in there, and they just got a lot of rich, they got a lot of Yiddish people, a lot of old Hollywood names. It's Hollywood. It's Hollywood. It's what Hollywood is. And they had Chris Cornell was in there. He had one of the fresher graves. And so he had a lot of fresh flowers by his, a lot of people taking pictures, the Ramones, some of the Ramones, Johnny Ramone, I guess, they had some famous actresses and actors but Mexican people, and I can say Latinos, but it's Mexican, I believe, who take it over, and they're throwing parties. They're dancing on the, around the graves, and there's, they're putting all these sweet treats. They got cupcakes on the headstone. And it's really a dichotomy in your brain when you see that. Because you look at a headstone, you don't think of it as a serving tray, You think of it as, or I've always thought of it as, let me put it on me. I've always thought of a headstone as just, under that, somebody dead. But during El Dia de los Muertos, which is the Mexican Halloween, they have like it's like part of a party. It's basically you're partying with dead people. And it sounds crazy, but I realize that the way to die is to die Mexican. You know? I think living American is pretty neat. I think we got a lot, obviously living American is extremely comfortable. I'm not going to deny that. I think that we lack some in the sense of community and some of those things sometimes, and thinking about humanity first over, technology and those sorts of things. But whatever, man, those are big picture thoughts. But if you're going to die Mexican. I mean, look, if I come down with stage 3 cancer, brother, you can bet I'm spending that last stage. That last stage is going to be me hitchhiking down to Cancun, or Puerto Vallarta, or Nogales. That's what I'm going to spend my last stage getting, because, dude, when you die in Mexico, they come see you. They put cupcakes on your gravestone. People sitting on the side of a casket sipping limonada. I'm just telling you, because, I have friends that are dead, dude. I know some dead. And I go visit them, and it's just calm, and it's, you have to cry. It's, where some of those feelings come up. And I think some of those feelings can come up as well in this Latin version of death. But I'm telling you that dying and dying Mexican style, wrap me up in a flour tortilla, boy, before you put me in the ground. Embalming is for straight up, gringos, homie. You know what I'm saying? Wrap me up in a damn taquito. I want each one of my legs wrapped in a taquito. You can go burrito with the upper half of my body, and badao. Bury me, Mexican. Because look, man, the kids are out there. There's candy, there's fun, there's music. And they have that amazing face painting you're seeing now where it's like this artistic skeleton. And it's like the kind of jeweled, kind of artistic half of the skeleton face. And they're doing all that. And that was at El Dia de los Muertos. But anyhow, I had a great time out there. And I got a costume on. So if you want to see my costume, come to the YouTube channel. And listen, if you're listening to this on iTunes, on YouTube, Spotify, wherever you're listening to it, come and subscribe. Okay? Can you do that for me? Come and subscribe. Because that's how I show what I'm doing. That's how I'm able to get people to come on board and support this podcast. And with that said, I want to thank my Patreon supporters. That Gunt Squad. They're out there. And I appreciate it. We just got some new lighting. They're not up yet because I don't know how to put them up. But I'm going to have a guy come install them, and I'll show you on Patreon the new lights. And we'll put extended footage on Patreon. You can support the podcast. Patreon, patreon.com/Theo Von. But man, if you're going to die Mexican. Or get involved in El Dia de los Muertos. Find a celebration that is close to you. Go check it out. Man, it blew my mind. Sorry, I had a little bit of coffee there. I know I make a lot of mouth sounds, and I've talked about it before. I make a lot of, there's a lot of, you can hear me swallowing and this and that. I got a big lip, I got that maki, that bottom lip. I got that sashimi, Daddy got that sunburnt snail laying below his upper lip. So, you know what I'm saying? If you ever had seen a vagina and one side of it been kind of bit by a spider, that's what I got that bottom lip like that. And I'm not saying that to be vulgar, but I am saying that to be descriptive and to be accurate. Because I am trying these days to be as accurate as I can, so you know what I'm talking about and you know what I'm going through. But yeah, man, I woke up Saturday and I didn't feel like doing anything. And one thing that happened was I had I did a comedy show Friday night, and Joe Rogan was there. He's in the audience, and in the morning he sent me a text and he just said, "Hey man, you were really funny last night." And I know I've talked about this a little bit before. A lot of these comedians that do that, Coco Diaz and and Rogan, Kirk Fox, Neil Brennan, Ian Edwards, some guys that are experienced, successful, and instead of just being that and keeping all that to themselves, they could just stay in that in that world, but instead they choose to reach out every now and then and let somebody who doesn't have as much time and as much experience as them, and as much talent as them in some cases, know, hey man, I see what you're doing, and I feel like you're doing a good job. And I'll tell you this, man, honestly, that's one of the things that got me going Saturday morning, was having somebody else kind of show a little bit of care, So I'm gonna try to remember to do that as my week goes on. But yeah, man, I went out to that El Dia de los Muertos, had a nice time, and then I got into. Oh, I'll tell you this. Let me tell you a Halloween story. Because, when I grew up in a time when you did as much tricking as you did treating. You did as much tricking as you did treating. I mean, they had a dude in our neighborhood who passed away, this old man, right? Passed away on Halloween Day. And dude, I will bet you fucking 4 rusty shotguns that they sat that man out on the front porch that night. Did they tell everybody he was dead? No. No, if you were smart and your soul was well calibrated, you could walk up and feel that the man wasn't living. You could trust in your own instincts as you walked up there to get you a Snicker or a mint. Sometimes they had a handful of mints over at that house, I remember. And if you got there too late, all the mints had stuck together in the bowl because they were mints that were out of wrappers. Cheapest mints you can get is you can get a sack of peppermints. You used to be able to. No wrappers on them, dude. That's when I grew up. Candy wasn't, a wrapper was something to fancy, You had to go to the fancy neighborhoods if you wanted wrapped candy. I remember you get up to that bowl, you couldn't even separate the mints from each other. At a certain time of night, it was whoever got to that bowl ran off just with a damn chunk of mint. I mean, you could walk off with 1.5 pounds of mint under your arm because all the mint was stuck together. And you got all the candy, and that was it. And the rest of the night, people was trying to get at you, trying to chip them off a little nugget of joy. A little, their little serving of Halloween goodness. So it was almost like a little bit of rugby. Once whoever got to that mint house first and got that chunk, because the only thing you could do, get that chunk away from the bowl. Is separate that big chunk of mint, because there was no not everybody had wrappers. A lot of these kids grew up in these wrappered places where they had wrapper, different wrappers on all the candy. Some houses you went up to and they just asked you how you were feeling, how everything was doing. How you doing, little Fauntleroy? Well, we didn't have all that. But anyhow, I guarantee you they left that man out there on Halloween, a real dead man on the front porch. And you know what? There's nothing wrong with that. If I get to die on Halloween, you better I want you to stick both of my hands up with all 10 rigor mortis, ice cold hard fingers pointing upward. Then I want you to slowly fold down and inward 8 of those fingers. And the 2 fingers you leave up, boy, they better be those frickin' northbound soldiers right in the middle of my hands, baby. Fuck you. That's what I'm saying when I'm out of here. And you can leave me on the front porch, You can even put a sign around my neck, maybe dead, ? Or how about this? Living, ? Or living, uncertain emoji. You can do that for me. Because I think that's okay. That's some of the fun about life, running up to somebody's porch in the dark and not knowing if the man in the chair is dead. That's how stories are started, and, lore happens, and interest and intrigue by leaving a dead man on the porch for maybe 18 hours to get a little bit extra squeeze out of his life. But yeah, man, those were good times in Halloween. And I'll tell you another good time that I had before I tell you about the rest of my weekend. Dude, I went to Maroon 5 had a party last night. And I went there, and it was interesting. Or Adam Levine and his band, Adam Levine, from some of y'all know him from whatever the chair, the spinning chair. You know, it's like a barber's chair, but they're helping people sing. The Voice. You know, a lot of you guys know him from that. I went to that party this weekend, and I'll tell you that about that as well in just a little bit. We're going to get to that. But first, let me tell you about this dead bird. This past weekend. Now, I'm not freshly shorn at the moment, but I will be at some point. And you've heard me talk of the amazing shaves that I give myself. And I get them from my Dollar Shave Club razor, especially when I use it with their Dr. Carver's shave butter. You almost want to put it on a waffle, but legally you shouldn't. Well, I'm here to tell you right now, I never will give up my membership. In fact, I'm adding even more Dollar Shave Club products to my daily routine. Dollar Shave Club makes products for your hair, face, skin, shower, everything you need. Wash yourself, treat yourself. You deserve it. They only use the finest premium ingredients, and they deliver it to you, the user, just like they do their razors. No more annoying trips to the store. Just open up your door, and you got that Dollar Shave Club hit. I use it for almost everything: razors, body cleanser, hair gel, and yes, even butt wipes. That's right. Get between them cheeks on that Dollar Shave Club. You know what I'm saying? It has you covered head to toe. You can get your first month of their best razor along with travel size versions of shave butter, body cleanser, and yes, even butt wipes. For just $5. After that, replacement cartridges ship for just a few bucks a month. It's the Dollar Shave Club Starter Set. Starter Set. Get yours for just $5 exclusively at dollarshaveclub.com/weekend. That's dollarshaveclub.com/weekend. Thanks for your support. This past weekend. But first, let me tell you about this dead bird. So I used to live in a popular city, and I'm not going to tell you the name of that city in case anybody goes back in time and tries to stalk me. But I used to live in a popular city over on the coast. And it was a beautiful city, beautiful old southern city. And I lived there, and one of my friends that I lived with at one point was a female, Kiki, this beautiful girl named Kiki. And she, often you could find her on roller skates. But this particular evening, she was flat-footed. And this particular evening was Halloween. And so we were both dressed up, you know, or getting dressed up, or gonna get into our costume. But we said, you know what? We can't be selfish Halloweeners. We need to go get us some candy and leave it out for somebody or many people that want to come and get a piece of us, you know, come and knock on our door because we've been waiting for you. So we start going walking, okay? And on the way to the CVS, we found a dead bird. And they had a bird, and this bird had just died, okay? So I'm going to say it like that. Like, sometimes, let me say this. This bird was freshly dead, brand new dead. Let's say it like that. Now, if you walk up on a bird, okay, and it's freshly dead, I feel like you have some responsibility to it, you know? Like, say if you walk up on a person has been dead 4, 5 days, 2 weeks, or whatever, you're just like, you know, maybe a couple Snapchat things, you know, maybe one filter over their face, but then you're going to call the police, you're going to run off, you're going to experience some fear, or some disgust, or some separation. You're not going to feel an attraction as compared to if somebody has just died. If somebody's just died, then they're freshly dead, you know? If somebody's brand new dead, then you're going to feel some responsibility towards them. So what happened was, me and Kiki are walking to the CVS to get us some candy, some wrapped candies, individually wrapped, and there was a dead bird right there, brand new dead. And so we're like, damn, you know, this bird's dead, you know? But we felt some responsibility. I mean, this bird had probably died a minute before we got there, maybe, or 40 minutes before, but it had so recently died that it was more living than it was dead, and so we felt some responsibility towards it. So we picked up the bird and put it in a little bit of a box, you know? And not a big box, a small box, kind of. Say if you had a Cracker Jack, you know the Cracker Jack boxes, you had a little Cracker Jack box, right? Say if you took that exact same shape of the box, but you made it about 5 times. You made it about 5 times more space inside of it. So, it's just like a bigger Cracker Jack box that a small bird could fit down inside of it. And if you shook the box a little, you could hear the bird move from side to side a little bit. And the box was about a foot long. I'm just trying to give you an idea of what the box was like that we put the bird in. So anyhow, we're walking over to this CVS, right? And right when we get inside, there's a man in there. We're walking around, and it's kind of, there's kind of a vibe in the air during Halloween where people are fun. People are we have a sense of something we're all about to do together, like, oh, people are going to trick or treat, or are you going to go to a party? What's going on? And so that's the vibe that's there. That's the energy that's going on. So there's a man there in the aisle, and he said, this man was nosy. I'm guessing, and I'll tell you why he might have been nosy, because I'm going to tell you about what he just said. He said, what's in the box? And right there, that lets me know that he's nosy, unless, he has spent his whole life wondering what's in this particular box. Then I would say he's more, he's more trying to live out his dreams. But I doubt he was doing that, so I'm guessing this man is nosy. He says, what's in the box? And so I showed him this bird, right? Dead bird in the box, dude. This brand new dead. And then the dude gets pissed at me, right? He's like, it's not a dead bird. Kind of offended. That's not a dead bird. And I'm like, dude, this is a dead bird, dude. I'm not going to lie about a dead bird. I mean, the bird is dead. There's nothing, lying about it isn't going to get anybody anywhere, because nothing's going to get anywhere. Nobody's getting anywhere anyway. The bird's dead. I just happen to have it in here because it had just died. And, if something's just died, you have some liability towards it. So anyhow, the dude's like, gets pissed. He's like, it's not a dead. I'm like, it's a dead bird. Dude touches it. Bird's dead, right? Now dude's pissed because I told him the truth. Now he gets to the manager, right? And the manager comes over. I'll say this about the manager. He didn't, the manager's like, the manager didn't speak English organically. Okay. That's what he said, right? Spoke pretty much Spanish. And he goes, we don't see this bird. That's what the manager said. We don't see this bird. We don't see this bird. And so I tell him honestly, man, look, we found this bird on the side of your building, dude. And then the dude says, no returns. No returns, man. And I don't know if I've never worked at a CVS, right? Or Rite Aid or other similar types of environments. But I'll say this, dude. I guess the manager on Halloween, anybody can be a manager at CVS on Halloween. I think this dude, they had just drafted this dude, out of like a small Division II CVS. And this dude saying no returns, like, I'm trying to return this bird, right? And this other dude is still complaining to him, and the other gentleman, I'll be honest with you, bro, he's a little tender, dude. He's coming a little bit tender, Nothing wrong with that, but, here's what I think honestly happened with that man. He trying to flirt with me, He trying to flirt with me, what's in the box, And then when I show him what I got in the box, that I honestly have a dead bird. He gets pissed that I have a dead bird, Like I'm lying about this, like I'm fucking dealing, like I don't deal with fake dead birds, dude. That's bullshit. That's for children. If I have a fucking dead bird, that bird is dead, dude. I'm not Edgar Almost Poe, brother. All right? If I'm showing up with the Raven Daddy, that thing is El Muerto. And then when he realized that I had an actual dead bird and he sees that I got my friend there, Kiki, who's a female, he probably gets a little bent out. That I'm not trying to catch on to his deal. Probably trying to be Barbara Streisand or something. I'm not trying to, or he's trying to be a ladybug or whatever he's trying to be, And I could tell, I'm just telling you, I'm riding this man's vibes. I don't have any ill will towards this man or whatever his preferences are. But that was his vibe, He starts inching at me, and that's why he got the manager over. And the manager, dude, I thought the manager's cute. I'm like, if you're hitting on anybody, hit on this manager. This dude barely probably even works at this CVS. But the dude says, can't remember what he said now. We don't know this bird. And then he said, no returns, dude. And I was like, damn, man. And that got me think, man, no returns, man. You know? That got me thinking no returns. You know, where did this bird go? When he was here, he was gone. Did he return to, is he flying out in the ether? What's he doing now? But anyhow, we left, dude. We got back Halloween, we're going to go out on the evening there in this city, this unnamed city. Because they got them fucking dirty time travelers out there. And I don't put it past somebody on the dark web to be building a time machine and saying, you know what, I'm going to go back to where Theo Vaughn lived. And I'm going to hide out in that dude's backyard. And I'm going to sneak up to his window at night and watch him sit lonely at his computer and probably jerk off. Or probably feel some semblance of unjoy. But anyhow, so we put a box outside of the door. It said, just take one. We wrote on that same box that we had taken. And the top was kind of ripped off of this box. So you got to think of a long box, almost like a shoe box, if you bisected it horizontally. Stand that upright, right on the side. Not home, just take one. And then we put that like at eye level. So you had to reach down into that box to get a candy, And I undid a couple rolls of sprees in there, if you ever had that, And then a couple of wrapped candies, butterscotches. So we got you got some individual sprees, butterscotches in there, all on top of this bird, right? So you had to reach kind of down into the box. And dude, you had to get you a candy, bro, and take that thing on, man. So I don't know if we started a swine flu or what we did, but I will say this. When we got back home that evening from trick-or-treating, there was only about half that candy left in that box, man. And that's God's plan. And that's God's plan, And that's truly beautiful. And that's Halloween. That's Halloween. Doing fun shit, I remember we filled this dude. We had a dude in our town, Mr. Mike. And he'd lost a limb, And he said it was in battle, but I don't think it was in battle, dude. Honestly, I think he's probably fucking around somewhere by a truck or by some machinery. But we filled his leg up with custard one year, dude. Vanilla custard, right? So we're waiting all night for him to get back by his legs because this dude was, I don't want to say he was homeless, but he was outdoors all the time to the point where 90% of the time you wondered if he had it indoors. And he, dude, we saw him finally catch that limb, bro. He's putting it back on, dude. He's going to. Sees it, it's full of this custard. And took that shit straight to the dome, dude. Straight to the dome. And that's Halloween. And that was a bizarre picture I remember that kind of almost enhanced my imagination. Was watching a man, and I think he was on liquor at the time. He looked like he was on liquor, and he was always on liquor. So I wouldn't assume if I saw him at some point that he wouldn't have been on liquor, and this was, some point. So I saw this man drinking custard out of his own leg. And until you've even seen it just takes your brain to another place because you don't think that that's something realistic. You don't think that that's something that's going to happen, that somebody's going to take a sip of something, a sip of a sweet sauce out of their own appendage. You don't think that. And at that point, that's when your brain can get a little bit of Tim Burton in it. When your brain sees things in a way that they aren't normally. But those are two good Halloween stories that I had, or whatever they are. That was some of my Halloweening. But I'm a newsie. That's what I'm dressed up as. And a newsie is a character from a musical. Christian Bale was in it. And I'll put the link to the bio in the YouTube comments and section, and all of that. And you can check it out. But I'm a newsie for Halloween. This is what I've been for a few years. Because I don't prepare enough, and I haven't really had a lover to go out with on the Halloween much. So, I'm not doing any of those dual costumes. I did Jesus. I did honestly, I did dress up like Jesus one year, with the wooden cross and everything in Tucson, Arizona. I think I was going through a weird period. Took that to a party, and my girl at the time was dressed like the devil, dressed like Satan. So, and she was a bit of a see you next Tuesday, if you will, take that acronym. But she was also she was cool. She was fun. But anyway, man, that was a wild one that I had. What else? I dressed up like a pedophile one time, or just I get the mustache made out of my own body hair, like they used to do in prison, and I would do the long sleeve shirt with the leather elbow patches, packet of crayons in the pocket. Dark sunglasses, el mustache, You know, that word curtain, pop that word curtain right above the lip, you know, and just stand there all night. Don't say anything. Some of it's pedophile or just like something that makes you think of darkness, you know, because that's one thing about Halloween, you know. Sometimes I want to see the dark arts. You know, I want to see the dark arts put on a fashion show. That's Halloween, you know. I want to see young Danny, dude, my boy, jump off the side of that fucking tailgate right in the sheer darkness thinking he's landing in somebody's yard, going to trick-or-treat in the rich people's neighborhood, and come neck to face to neck with a fire hydrant that's in somebody's yard. You know? That's what I want to experience. I want to play kick the can with some dude, Fat Jeremy, and nobody ever found him. Ever. And this has been probably almost 26 years. Anyhow, man, that's what's going on, dude. That was some of my Halloween. Oh, then I went to the Maroon 5. We're going to get into a few calls. Then I went to the Maroon 5. I also want to tell you guys, if you didn't listen, we had the Brock follow-up. Last week we had Brock called in from Central Missouri. Young fella, 20 years old, called in dealing with some, you know, some confidence issues and, gravitationally advanced, you know, short, small, whatever. We all got something, dude. And we had a bunch of good responses, calls in for him that came in. And so we put that up, a special follow-up episode. And that's on iTunes and on YouTube. You can check it out. That's this past follow-up with Brock. But let me tell you about this. So, you know, had the fun day, did that, got home, and then I'm going to the Maroon 5 party, right? I get there. Well, first I went and met some people for dinner, man. This is what it's like, all right? My buddy sets up this dinner. Like, he's got, like, you know, some girls that he knows from another country or in town in L.A., right? You know, some fancy dudes are cool dudes, you know. They're there. You know, I don't know any of them. And I get to the restaurant late. I'm there 9 minutes. I got, like, all the leftover foods, like, at one end of the table, right? So I eat real quick, introduce myself to some people, and then I got to pay part of the bill. None of the girls pay, offer to pay, right? So each dude throwing in 200 bones, right, on this food. And I'm like, fuck this, right? That's what 60% of me said. But 40% of me said, you know, I told my buddy Mike I would be here. He warned me in advance that, you know, sometimes we split we have the men take care of the bill. And I'm like, well, you know, I don't do this Hollywood experience type of night that much because it's not my vibe. I'm just going to be a part of it and see what that's, you know, just be a part of it. You know, sometimes just getting fucked on the money, that's part of something. That's part of whatever it is, you know. But yeah, so next thing you know, I chipped in on this fucking meal, shit, so I'm angry. We get outside. You know, my buddy Mike, he's got a nice car. Everybody gets in his car. Then, like, leftover people are getting in my car. Then they all get out of my car, you know, and want to take an Uber. So that left me feeling kind of weird. I thought it was maybe they didn't like my car. You know, I start feeling inferior ideas, you know, popping in my head. I'm not cool. You know, people don't like me. My car isn't, you know, neat enough or fancy enough, you know. And I got a neat car, you know, I mean, as far as, you know, I treat myself to a decent car, nothing outrageous, but, you know, it's a fun car. It's cool. It's neat. But anyhow, so now I'm driving out to the party by myself. And then I find out later that everybody took an Uber. They were going to get drugs, right? I don't do drugs. You know what I'm saying, bro? So now I've done drugs and I'll drop stories. Dude, I will take a medium range story of mine and throw it up against the best story you haven't even had yet. Dude, I'll mail you an 8-ball for your 30th birthday, you know, and fly in a couple of Guatemalans, dog, and send my friend Veldrin, who has DS and parties, dude. I don't know if you ever known anybody with DS at parties, but this dude, he's got that syndrome, bro, and he gets down, bro. But, and I'll still match that story to any of my old stories, you know, because I still want to be, you know, competitive in this, you know, in the fun game. But anyhow, I find out that they all went to get drugs, and I don't do drugs, so at least that made me feel a little bit better. But I'm already kind of not nervous, but just I don't do these kind of parties that much, you know. But I get there, right when I get there, Jeff Ross is there, you know him from the Roast Master, right? And I'm not name dropping, but I am telling you that he was there, and he's going in this like private entrance. There's a regular entrance, there's a back entrance, right, for this Maroon 5 Halloween party, you know? And you don't have to like Maroon 5, that's fine. They just throw a party every year that's like a hip party, and so I'm excited to be going, you know? So Jeff's like, hey, bro, just come in with me, you know? I'm like, well, I'm waiting for my friends. They're not here yet because none of them wanted to ride with me. He's like, I didn't tell him that part, but he's like, come inside, you know, come in with me. So next thing you know, I go in with Jeff and his buddy Kai, and literally right when we walk in, there's like this back, I mean, it's this place in LA called Sportsman's Lodge, and it's all like, I mean, there's like a pond, and there's like little bridges going over it, and there's like little enclaves here and there, and there's a huge room where there's going to be a performance, and there's another room where there's a DJ, and there's like little bars placed all over. There's an outdoor bar and an indoor bar, and it's probably, I mean, the whole thing's probably as big as half of a football field, you know? And then all these little stations are all over the place, or maybe a third of a football field. Let's say that. Anyhow, man, having a good time. Actually, maybe a half. Sorry. But anyhow, we walk in, and then there's Adam Levine. And he have a wig, you have a long wig, and you have skeleton face paint, and a long wig, and he just like, hey, Jeff, what's going on? He starts talking to Jeff Ross. Jeff introduces me, and then he starts saying that we're going to be AC/DC tonight, and we're going to play, his band is going to play like 6 AC/DC songs. And I will put a little bit of that footage into the YouTube so you can just see what it was like. I'll put that at the top of the YouTube so you can see what that's like. But anyhow, so next thing you know, like it was kind of neat just to hear. And I'll say this: the guy had a really nice vibe, super friendly. I've always heard that he's a friendly guy, Adam Levine, but anyway, super nice. Dressed as like kind of like a not like a cross-dressing, I guess is more the term, cross-dressing skeleton. And he had on like a choker, and he's got on this wig. But he starts saying that they're going to play, 6 AC/DC songs. So suddenly I feel a little bit more comfortable at the party because now I've like met the guy whose party it is. I'm here with Jeff Ross, Jeff Ross is like this kind of roaming dinosaur when he's anywhere. He always has this like confidence about him, which at a party is really nice because he's been in LA forever. He knows everyone, and he just feels comfortable kind of wherever he is. This is his home turf, So anyhow, we roll around this party, and there's some great costumes, man. I mean, there's everything from like the scariest stuff to, pregnant people. Oh, one guy had like a tablet on his front and a tablet on his back, and he had a shirt, and the tablets were like, there were like rectangles cut out in the shirt, and there was a rectangle cut out in the front, rectangle cut out in the back, and the tablets on each side, so the screen's facing out his back and out on the front. And somehow he had this camera situation set up where you could see through him. So if you were standing behind him, the screen showed what was through him on the other side. And if you were standing in front of him, that screen showed what was behind him. So it was so bizarre, man. Like the dude, you could literally be watching the performance. If you stood behind him, you could be watching the performance through a human. So I'd never done anything like that, man. I've never looked through anybody. I've stared maybe into an orifice or two, but I've never really, looked through someone. But anyway, so next thing you know, we're walking around this party, had a good time, the band plays. There was some really bizarre, like, hallways and stuff you could walk down. People are on Molly, people are on ecstasy, people are on, you can see some cocaine here and there. Everybody has wigs on, so as long as anybody's got semi-decent cheekbones, everybody looks fine as fuck, I'm trying to think of some great costumes that I saw. Man, there were so many. There's a bunch of Harvey Weinsteins. Oh, they kind of had this black guy who was dressed as a bull chained to the wall, and people were taking pictures with him. It was almost like an exhibit. A little slavish to me, honestly, and a lot of people were saying that. And if you had taken this, I thought about this. If somebody had done this at a party in South Carolina, North Carolina, Alabama, it would not have gone over well, right? But in California, it's for some reason that's not inappropriate, right? To have a black man chained up dressed as a bull. And really, in my mind, I didn't think, my first thought isn't, oh, this dude is just, this is like some slavery enactment. My first thought is, oh, they just got a guy to be a bull. The guy happens to be black, he doesn't have a shirt on. He's shackled on each arm to the wall, and he just has pants on, right? A little bizarre, but that's my first thought. But then in the scope of the world, or the universe and the media, especially in America, I'm thinking that if someone did this in the South or in the middle of America, that somebody in one of, some media person would say, oh, look how fucked up these people are for doing this. This is so wrong. But as long as it's in a place like Los Angeles or New York or a big city, then it's okay. I don't like those. I just don't like how, I don't know, that kind of stuff. I don't like when things are unfair. And I think that, so that's where my mind took it. My mind took it like, oh, well, if somebody did this, where I'm from, then they would be looked at as a racist, even though they were just trying to achieve the same goal as someone is here, which is just to have a neat exhibit and to give a man some work who is obviously an artist or an entertainer. Or a model. I mean, the guy was jacked, he had a very strong shoulders and physique. So anyway, I don't know. That shit was super bizarre. If I can find a picture of that, I'll put that at the front of the YouTube as well, just so you can check it out. But that was it, man. I walked around. I saw some gal that I hooked up with a while back. She, fuck, I don't know. She used to have a drug problem. I think she still does. Made me glad that I wasn't with her, just because I don't want to be having that problem, I talked to some new friends, and when I was leaving, I was leaving out by myself, and there's Adam Levine in the same place as I'm walking out in this like back little area, and I'm not trying to name drop here, but I'm just telling you this story. To me, this is kind of a Hollywood story. So he goes, hey, what'd you think of the show? And I thought it was awesome. Like Sammy Hagar got up there. I said, dude, I didn't know that I liked AC/DC as much as I did, because the show was fucking awesome. Like, I love AC/DC apparently. I didn't know that. It took me back to my child. I knew every word of the song. It was great. And he goes, man, I didn't know that either. He's like, I've been listening to him for the past month just because I've just wanted to get in tune with the song so I could sing them. But he's like, I didn't know that either. He's like, where's Jeff Ross? I said, oh, I think they're about to leave. And then I grabbed Jeff, and they chatted for a little while. There was like kind of a little bit of a group conversation. I think some people seemed to, high on whatever they were doing, having a good time. And that was it, man. And then I drove home. And that was my Halloween, that was my Halloween. So just wanted to share that with you, man. We had some calls come in. I'm sorry that I took so long. I've taken so much of this episode for myself, but I'm dressed like a newsie, which is one of Christian Bale's early films. If you want to go check that out, I believe it's on Netflix now. It's a musical, and it's about when they didn't have papers anymore. People couldn't sell papers anymore. And there was a law or an issue with it. But let me get to some calls right now. I got to get out of here. I'm actually doing Joey Coco Diaz's podcast as well tonight. But let's get to some calls here. Here we go. This one is from across the pond, where they might celebrate Halloween.
Yo, Theo, what's up, man? Calling from Ireland, Dublin. Christian here.
Hey, thank you very much for calling. I don't know if your name is Christian or if you are Christian, but either one, you're welcome here, brother. Thank you for calling. Onward.
Man, just calling just to send my love right out to you. That last episode. Fuck, man. Just spilling your heart out. Talking about love, talking about, your difficulty accepting it at times. And I don't know, man. I appreciate your podcast. And really, when you lay it out like that, and when you lay it out so bare, helps me, it reminds me that I'm not the only one who feels certain ways about certain things. So, yeah, lots of love.
I appreciate it, man. I didn't mean to cut you off there, but I appreciate it, and I do appreciate that sentiment, Yeah, my brother told me whenever I started this podcast, I had him listen to an episode, and And my brother's really, he's the love of my life, to be honest with you. I don't know if I always would have said that as a child, but because we didn't know each other. But as I've gotten older, he has been, he's been like a father to me at sometimes. A role model, a leader. Damn, this shit's got me choked up. He's been everything to me, man. And he listened to an episode when I first started this podcast, and he said, man, he said, it's weird. You just, you're just putting your thoughts and you're putting your feelings out there, and you're sharing a lot about yourself. And I say, yeah, and he goes, just be careful. He said, just be careful. And if people call in and they share about themselves, just be grateful, and so that's just what I've tried to do, man. I try to be a little bit careful because I don't want to be, have nothing for myself that I don't share. But at the same time, I'm sick of being in a fucking world where, people are just, I feel like we're always just getting tricked with bullshit and things aren't real. Like, why we have to have why there have to be so many layers of unreality for us to just share like whatever's kind of the truest thing to us sometimes. And anyhow, I know I'm going off on a tangent. But yeah, man, I appreciate that call, and I get some other ones like this. And I mean, honestly, I get a decent amount of calls like this, and I liked this one for one because I like the accent, and you saying that accent is just charming, and it made me feel good to know that somebody far away in Ireland has, and I'm fucking almost dressed, dude. I'm dressed like kind of like an Irish lesbian right now, but in this newsy outfit. But that somebody far away has some, that we can have similar feelings, because it just inspired me and made me think even more that, that we're just how similar we all are, But yeah, I try to put myself out there, man. Sometimes this show is like it just give me an opportunity to think and to feel, and I just. I don't know. My emotions are so close to what I'm doing all the time for some reason. And a lot of my life, I haven't liked that about myself because it's hard for me to hide the way I feel sometimes. Like if I'm talking to somebody, it's hard for me to, if I'm nervous or if I'm excited or if I'm, lying, all those things, very hard for me to hide them because it's right there with me all the time. Or if I'm, feeling admiration or feeling love, it's always hard for me to hide some of those things, or to, I don't know. I don't even know what I'm talking about right now, man. But I appreciate your call, dude, and you guys do that for me. You guys call in and give out the shit, and give out the feelings. And, I just hated living in a world for so long where people aren't doing that, I just got tired of hearing about some shit. I want to hear what's making you feel something, That's what I just wanted to hear. So, but look, man, you're welcome. That's all I mean to say, dude. Fucking, that was the most long-winded. You're welcome. Let's move to another call, man. You're welcome, and I love having you as a listener, man. And I appreciate you being, willing enough to share how you felt about that. To call up another dude and leave a voicemail, and just say, look, man, I appreciate what's going on. I appreciate you for that. Let's hear another one. Here we go.
Hey, Theo. I would love to hear you talk more or talk sometime about interacting with wild animals. I think around the time when we grew up, we did a lot more of it than kids are doing nowadays, and some funny shit always happened. I'm a wildlife biologist, and so I'm out in the wilderness all the time, mostly in Alaska and Central America, and I kicked a caribou in the face one time when I got charged. I had to choke out a swan in a survival situation, and shit happens if you're out there long enough. So I bet you got some funny stories about possums and raccoons and God only knows what from growing up in Louisiana.
Damn, bro. First of all, I had to choke out a swan in a hostage situation, I think you said. Maybe the quote of a lifetime. If you hear this, and I'll go back and look for your number on the Google voicemail. And also, you can hit the hotline, 985-664-9503. If you have a thought or call or an idea, anything you want to contribute to the podcast, hit it up. But, dude, yeah. I mean, I remember finding they had some man in our town, I guess, had been trying to get I don't know if it was a peacock or something to run cocaine for them. They found peacocks had like a cocaine kind of taped around their neck, and they found 3 of them. And so this had been somebody was trying to train cocks, or, peacocks, and cocks is short for that, to run dope. And I guess it's not a bad idea, because when you see a peacock, the last thing you're thinking, this animal will have cocaine on it. You're looking at the show, you're looking at the big the flared tail comes out, and you're looking at that. You're not thinking this animal running dope. And so it's a smart idea, because they're putting on that show, and meanwhile they're selling dope on the side, It's almost like when a hooker sells drugs. You so hypnotized by that poisse that you ain't a lot of time thinking that they might be drug muling, They might have balloons full of heroin in their buttocks. Because you're so keyed in on that vagina, you ain't even thinking that just inches away, that buttocks may be holding, kilos of dope. And so that's a beautiful, that's beautiful, man. That's what's happening out there. But yeah, somebody was trying to do that. I remember, dude, they had a lady train butterflies to be around her, and I don't know if she was hiding, seed in her hair, or doing, hiding, putting different types of sugar drip or something in her hair, or honey behind her ears or whatever, but she was training these butterflies to be around her. And she would get stung by other bees and wasps and stuff, and, other non-butterflies, we'll call them. But she did a decent job of having those butterflies around. But yeah, I remember doing a lot more with that. I remember getting attacked by animals. Getting attacked by animals a lot, dude. Watching dogs making love a lot in the neighborhood. They had a dachshund that, I swear to God, took somebody's virginity in our neighborhood on accident. You saw some things. They had a bad wire in our neighborhood on one of the power lines, and birds were always getting electrocuted up there. Dead birds, and most of the time when I found them, they would be dead long enough where I knew I don't have any semblance of responsibility towards them anymore. And that's one thing you notice with animals. But look, man, I would love it, and I'm going to reach out to you. I want to hear more about these animals, and we might have animal questions for you. So I'd love to hit you up with some animal questions and see what we can get out of you, bro, and get some information, because it seemed like you are a man that has information, and I appreciate you calling. But yeah, there was a better time when people and animals interacted more. And I wasn't a Tarzan, you know what I'm saying? I didn't grow up in the jungle. I just grew up in Covington, Louisiana. I grew up in a small town. I grew up in population probably maybe 3,000, 3,800, 3,900. Good people doing their best. Mixed vibe out there, I grew up out here in America. All right, let's hear a little bit more. Onward.
Hey, Theo. My name's Brock Hames. I'm from right outside Atlanta, in Dallas, Georgia. And you just said something on this latest podcast that kind of really resonated with me, talking about the Emmys and whatnot. How nothing feels real anymore. It really doesn't. It's like people almost try to capitalize on how authentic they are. But I don't know. It's troubling. It's troubling if you're really into art in any format. That's why I really think people like you and Joe Rogan and Donald Glover are just just gems in the world.
Hey man, I appreciate that, dude. And this isn't I'm not trying to make this podcast only play calls that say nice things about Theo episode. But I did like this call, and this call was a while back. This was from the Emmys. And some calls, look, man, I get a lot of voice messages, and we'll keep them in rotation until there's a time when it fits, or when a time when I can use it. But yeah, I agree, man. And it's a struggle to find out what's real. And it's one of the things that keeps me in bed. It's one of the things that defeats me a lot of times. You know, that nothing is real. You know, that this is all, we're all just victims of commercialism. And that we're not even, are we even in charge of our own brains a lot of times? Because, you know, there's so much data collected by the choices we've made, especially with the internet. So, and I mean, the internet is just a place where everything we do is so monitored, accurately monitored, mathematically monitored, that equations can be made to figure out who we are and what we're going to do next. It's baffling. But yeah, that nothing is real anymore. You know, and I feel like that I'm kind of in a search for that right now myself, and I think a lot of people in the world are. You know, especially in America, you know, or a lot of people in the America that I see, and it could just be my perspective. But I think but you know what? I feel it, dude. I feel in my bones and in my heart that a lot of people are looking for just what they want, shit that's real. I don't want this fake shit. You know, I don't want this fake shit. I don't want some, you know, celebrity who's lying to me just to, you know, fill some image, you know. Or, you know, you have a lot of, like in the past few years, you've had a lot of female celebrities hop on the feminism bandwagon just to make money. Don't think we didn't see that. We're not ignorant, you know. Yeah, I mean, it's just, I don't like seeing some things that just aren't genuine, you know, or at least trying to be, you know. Yeah, it's tough, man. We want to try and find things that are real. We want to have real moments with people. And yeah, I appreciate that, and that's why I appreciate some of you guys' calls, man. You know, and I appreciate some of these moments, dude. Because yeah, we're out here just looking for something real, man. That's what I'm doing. I know that's what a lot of you guys are doing. Shit, dude. I got to go do Joey Coco Diaz's podcast right now. I promised him I'd be there. I'm already going to be late, but I'm going to come back and finish this up a little bit later tonight. So I'll just have to put this fucking costume back on, dude. But man, I'm enjoying this time with you guys. Nothing is real, man. Or what is real? What are we looking for? I don't know, but let's get into that next episode. Maybe we'll do that. How about that? Let's get into that next episode. There's a couple other calls that are really good that I want to get to, but we're going to do it next week. This has already been a long episode. But what's real anymore? You know? What is real? How do you find out what's real? What do you search for? What do you do? What do you recommend? I love the fact that people are listening to podcasts. I love the fact that a gentleman just recommended to me Donald Glover. You know, because I didn't know that. I want to check him out. You know? I love the fact that you hear guys on these podcasts who are sharing real shit. You know, I love the fact that we're creating a culture here on this past weekend where, you know, this follow-up episode with Brock that we put up last week. Man, it was a really neat. I thought it was for me, dude. Not on, you know, really, I thought it was cool, dude. How many people called in, man, with different accents and different thoughts and fucking like, you know, other people that are shorter, experiencing shit. You know, damn, we just got so like everybody feels alone, but we're not alone, man. We're just so separate now. We're so separate. You know, we're in our own cars. We're in our own homes, you know. We're not in groups. We're not seeing what's going on. We're not seeing when our friend is struggling. You know? Dude, in the old days, you could tell in a heartbeat. Your buddy's shoulders were a little bit sunk, and you knew in a heartbeat to put your hand on his back, you know? Or to, you know, pay for his gum at the dime store or whatever, you know? You knew in a heartbeat to let him ride your bike if you got the new bike. You know? I mean, you knew things. You know, you saw somebody, you know, a kid shooting hoops by himself in the neighborhood, you knew to pull over. You know, to bike on over there, just say, what's up? Walk through his ditch, come up the other side of his ditch. Hey, man, you know? You could tell just by somebody's behavior what's going on, but we don't see people's behaviors that much anymore. You know, we're just getting too separate. You know, and that's one of the things that's like, and I don't know how to heal that. And it's not my responsibility to heal that either. You know, I'm not feeling this insane responsibility, but I guess I just, you know, what do I do for myself to heal it? You know, I try to keep in touch with my loved ones. You know, I try to, when somebody says something nice to me, like the dude from Ireland said, I try to let that, you know, resonate in me for a second instead of just I try to listen a little bit with my heart. So let that shit hit me down in that fucking ticker and that blood ticker, you know? I talk to my mother even when I don't want to sometimes. I don't know, but I'm learning. What do you do, man? What do you do to keep shit real in your life? That's what was so great about Halloween back in the day was it was an escape. That was an escape. Now it's Halloween every moment of our lives, with social media. But that was an escape, man. But yeah, let's do that for next week, man. Hit the hotline, 985-664-9503. Happy Halloween to you guys. If you got some kids out there with some beautiful, you got some beautiful children, get some photos of them, get out there and trick or treat and hold your wife's hand while you're walking down the street, Or if you got an ex-wife and y'all made those children together and you taking them trick or treating, take a cute picture, send them. I mean, these are things you're going to do anyway, but if you get that feeling in your heart that, man, this is something I should do right now, that's your instincts, And if you got a good heart, then your instincts are going to be good. We have to start to, and I say that because sometimes I doubt my own instincts, even though I know that my heart is trying to be in the right place, just some self-doubt and shit. I don't know, man. I'm a little bit all over the place today, but it's Halloween, bro, and I'm just a dead bird, dude. I'm just a dead bird in a box, just trying to get returned at a CVS, man. But I love you guys. I appreciate you guys for being here. Happy Halloween. Hit the hotline, 985-664-9503. If you have a male issue, if you're dealing with a male issue and you live in the California area, hit me up on the hotline. Let me know what's going on. It could be a relationship issue. It could be a self-worth issue. It could be any man issue. Any issue that you're dealing with as a man. It could be anything. From erectile dysfunction to, you're feeling short. We just we're doing a new pilot for Comedy Central, and we may be using some people who have actual real problems, So we'll see what's up, man. Y'all be good. Take care. Knowledge is power. Knowledge is pressure as well, man. Having too much knowledge, that's pressure. Not being open to new ideas, boy, you get stranded. You can be between a rock and a hard place, and you just might be the rock. You ever think about that? Sometimes you find yourself between a rock and a hard place, and you're the rock. So sometimes you got to soften up and open your brain up to other people's ideas. I'm going to give you an idea right here. It is Monday, November 6th, 2017. And we are living on Earth here in this galaxy. And that's all we know. That's all I know today, man. That's all I'm running on. Thank you, guys. Happy November. Some people still want to think that, that it's not almost seasonal time. Well, go to a CVS, okay? Go to a dang CVS or a Rite Aid, Walgreen, okay? Go to a Dollar General and go to a 99-cent shop and see if you don't, see if you don't see some accoutrements up there. See if you don't see a special turkey. One of those, a paper mache turkey kit, or some of those little cans of gravy. See if you don't see extra gravy at the ends of the aisle, stacks of canned gravy. See if you don't see them starting to push all of that pumpkin pie bubble gum, and that, dried giblet, salad, walnut, raspberry things. You know what I'm talking about. Damn raisins. See if they don't start peddling all of that. It's because it's wintertime. It's the holidays, man. If somebody comes at you this week, bro, it's the holidays, all right? The only thing I'm doing for the next 16 or 17 days is planning how I'm going to eat my turkey. Am I going to have it fried? Am I going to have it frizzled, permed? How do you like your turkeys? How do you like your turkey pieces? You want that dark, that white, that long neck? Would you like that turkey neck? I used to have a step uncle, and he used to suck on the turkey neck. He'd get that long strand of turkey neck meat, put it in his mouth, and then just slowly pull it out of his mouth and pretend it was a tongue. He would tell us it was a tongue when we were children. And it would look a little bit like a tongue. In fact, maybe it wasn't even turkey neck. It could have been turkey tongue or some kind of animal tongue. And he was pretending it was his tongue. And he was wild, and his daddy was wild. His daddy was named after one of the, what are those guys? Three Musketeers. His daddy was Mr. D'Artagnan. And his daddy would stay over, and I guess he was my step-grandfather, you know? And he was old, man. Mr. D'Artagnan was old. And he would let us put lotion on his legs at night in a non-sexual way. And it was pretty fun, you know, and that's back when, you know, it was rare that my brothers and sisters and I got together and did anything, and then Mr. D'Artagnan would let us put lotion on his legs at night sometimes. And it was pretty fun, I think, just because, and it wasn't sexual, man. And I know some people are like, that's gross, you know, that's, you know, y'all's being naughty with that old man, you know, or he's being naughty with y'all. It wasn't that. Okay, I knew people that were out there. I knew naughty makers, you know. I knew people out there that were sounding dirty horns in the distance, you know, and people e-jacking back there behind the birch trees and all of that, you know, and, you know, doing dirty stuff down by the big culverts and into the storm drains and everything, and into the recycling bin. They used to have a man that used to spray out into the recyclers in our neighborhood, and they caught him. Actually, a couple of dogs caught him, and then the police caught him. But Mr. D'Artagnan wasn't like that. He just, old man, you know, obsessed with putting lotion on. Constantly had lotion. Dude, you could barely, if you tried to shake his hand, your hand would slip right off of his. That's how, that man was greased up. And I think he probably used other types of lubricants, random lubricants, or anything around the house. You know? Coconut oil, thick water, you know, Neosporin, anything, petroleum jelly, kerosene, you know. He just liked to have a little bit of shine to him, a little bit of shimmer. He didn't like that natural skin. He didn't like I think he would have preferred, honestly, having more of a otter type body if he could have been an otter. But he was a man, Mr. D'Artagnan, and I know sometimes when he stayed by our house, he would let us kids put lotion onto his legs. He would put it on, he'd let us rub it in. And you think that's crazy, dude, but until you've rubbed lotion into an old man's knees, it's not bad. It's fun, kind of, you know. It's almost, you're trying to get all this lotion into their skin, and it was pretty fun, man. But welcome to this past weekend, guys. Appreciate you guys joining me. Got a lot of cool stuff, I guess, that happened this week. We had some good callers. I was actually going to go to Africa. And it got canceled. I was supposed to go perform for a sheik or a sheikh. You know, Sheik. Listen to this. So the other day I opened my email. I get an email 3 days ago. It says they want you in the Seychelles, which is off the coast of Madagascar. Oh, you thought it was just a cartoon? No, it's a country, you nut. You bag of damn dung jalapenos. Get the fire out of your feces, brother. Okay? Stay natural. It is a country, Madagascar. And off the island of it, there's a place called the Seychelles. And it is supposed to be just beautiful. So I get an email in my inbox. This is a neat thing about being in this business sometimes, is that I get an email in my inbox and it says, hey, they want you in the Seychelles. They want you. A Saudi prince or a sheikh. A sheikh wants you to come and perform, they said. And here's how it was going to be. I would fly there. It's 24 hours of flying, right? So I'd fly there. I could stay for 2 or 3 nights at the resort. You're also at a resort that's right there. And then you go to this special event that's going on for the sheik. You perform for the audience, and then you leave. You perform behind a plastic, like, you ever go to you ever be in a neighborhood, a scary neighborhood, or any neighborhood, and you go to pay for your gasoline at night, and the man is in there in a little cage, and at first you think he's sick. You know, he has, they quarantine him. He's got yellow pox, or, he's got cat fever or whatever, cat scratch fever or whatever they call it. They keep him inside of the cage, and you got to slide things to him in that drawer, slide him a TV dinner or whatever, But that's what, anyway, actually those men are in there for safety, and they're behind a plastic thing. Well, that's the kind of thing you perform for for the sheik. So his audience is all out there. You're in this, I guess, almost a human aquarium. You do your act and you leave. You never get to meet anybody at the party, blah, 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 or the event. That's what I heard. That's what the offer was to me, right? They said, we'll pay you this amount of money. You got to go there. I said, and I could bring a friend. But I was like, it was economy. It was regular seating. And I'm not a fancy pants. I'll sit in regular seating. I'll sit by the window, if I have my preference. But I said, look, man, I'm flying 24 hours to get there. It was 3 flights, Dubai, Frankfurt. So I'm thinking, I'll go first class. So I throw that back. I said, look, only way I'm going is if I can go first class. And I don't need to take a friend. I asked 2 friends, nobody could go. So next thing you know, they come back at me and say, okay, first class. Boom. Next thing you know, tomorrow I'm supposed to be heading to Africa. Africa. To go over there and perform for the sheikh, and then hang out for 2 nights or 3 nights at this resort. And instead, I get an email last night, literally 11:40 p.m., said the sheikh, something else came up. He's going to be shaking on Shakedown Street somewhere else, and he can't be there, so I don't get to go to Africa now. So anyway, that's one of the trials and tribulations that come sometime in this business, You think you can go back to the motherland or the fatherland. I'm not sure which one it is. I know the motherland is Africa. The fatherland, I'm guessing, is what? Italy? Greece, probably. I don't know if you've ever had a Grecian around you, But they can be kind of fatherly sometimes, So anyhow, man, that was a little bit of a letdown for my week. What else is going on, dude? I don't know. I've been dealing with like some relationship type stuff, I like this girl, and I just got so much fear when it comes to that kind of stuff. It's so hard for me to like move forward in relationships and, commit to those sort of environments. It's just, it's almost like impossible. It's almost impossible for me to even, make that connection and like believe that it's, I don't know if this is going to make sense, but in my brain, like believe that it's going to work out, I guess. I don't know, man. It's just really hard for me to commit, and I don't even think it's not that I don't want to. I think it's just that it's like I get to these walls where I can't. It's like I don't even know how to, the idea of having a girlfriend just makes me just panicked. It's just like, and some of it could come from, growing up and just having a tough, not a strong connection with my mother. That connection drove me bananas or whatever, I don't know. I'm figuring some of that out now, but yeah, just, and I had an instance, I was talking with this girl, and, she wasn't feeling that good about herself. And I know all she wanted me to do was say, oh, you're pretty. She was feeling bad about her looks, and I couldn't say it, man. Like I know that's what she wanted. All she wanted was just me. She wasn't fishing for a compliment, but I know I could just tell that it would have made her feel good if I'd have said, look, I think you're very pretty. And it was easy. I knew that's what my job was as a human at that moment. But I just couldn't. It was like I was so scared that if I like let this person, if I helped make this person feel good, that that they would know that then I would be responsible for making them feel good again. And it's like maybe I didn't have enough. I wasn't I didn't know if I could do that, It's almost like I didn't trust myself enough to make myself the type of person who would make them feel good, again. I don't know if that makes sense or not. I'm trying to get through some of my thoughts here with you guys right now at this moment. I guess that's maybe wild. I don't know. But yeah, I just couldn't do it. I was just like, well, if I let her know that I care right now by saying this, then I'm going to actually have to care, and I'm going to actually start committing myself to caring, and that's going to be really scary for me, because for most of my life, I've probably just been used to caring for myself. And not even in like an egomaniac type way, just in like a survival type of way, I think, Like I was just so probably afraid that nobody else was caring about me, that I had to care so much about me, and letting some of that go and actually caring about someone else. It's just a slippery slope. Just a slippery slope. So I don't know, that's some of the personal stuff I guess that's been going on. I need to make this announcement. I need, if you live in Los Angeles or have a friend that does, and you are interested in possibly working as a producer for this past weekend, drop me an email or hit me up on the hotline, 985-664-9503, or drop me an email, theovon@mac.com. I need some help. So things are happening here, and we're building up steam. And I need some help. So, that's one thing that it's kind of like a thought that's been resonating in my mind this week was the two things that I need to do are I need to work hard and I need to ask for help when I need it. And those are two things that have often been hard for me to do. I've always been a worker, but to work hard sometimes I can get sidetracked. And to ask for help, I've always had a tough time with that. But not today, not tonight. Not today, whatever day it is, whenever you watch this. It's Sunday evening for me, November 5th, and it's Monday, November 6th for this episode of This Past Weekend. So that's what's going on, guys. We got some great callers. I'm going to hit those in a second. I also want to let you know that you can check out the patreon.com/TheoVon for extended footage from this week. I also just put up a video on there. I got some new headshots and pictures taken. Because here in Hollywood, you got to have new pictures of yourself. You got to have pictures of your face and of your, your eyes and your nose and your mouth and your hair. And you have to have pictures of you. And I've been using this picture that looks like I work at a Chase Bank, like a young buck that works at a Chase Bank, like in Birmingham, Alabama. And is like kind of like a young manager and might be, could possibly be bisexual. Those are some of the headshots that I've been using. And they aren't serving me anymore because I do not look like that right now. So the roles that I've been getting to go audition on are for young, possibly closeted bankers. I'm just joking. But also I've been going on roles for, generals in an army or things where then I get there and they're like, dude, you aren't going to be the general. You're going to be the guy peeling potatoes, So I've been having I got some new headshots. So those are the types of things I'll be putting up on the Patreon. And plus extended footage from today's episode. I'll have new extended footage every other week. But you can check that out, patreon.com/TheoVon. And I want to thank you to all the Patreon supporters. They've helped us to get this new camera. We got some new lighting coming in. And they're going to help us to get to this producer that we have as well. This new producer. And we got our charter sponsor, and that is Gray Block Pizza. If you're in Los Angeles, hit up that Gray Block, dude. They got it. I had some this week, man. If I were to pick my teeth right now, woo, taste, boy. Taste. That's Gray Block Pizza, and we're happy to have them on board. Oh, let me tell you this, man. I watched that Michael Bisping versus George St. Pierre fight. And I'm not, I remember the first fight I ever saw, this Irish fella named Milford King threw a senior citizen into a ditch fire when I was young. And that man came back at him, a senior citizen, Mr. Polito. He got lit up on fire, and that man stormed back at him. He thought he was dead. He thought he was going to die, but that man came out that ditch with flames piggybacking on his skin and on his flannels and on his suspenders. He had suspenders. And the last thing you want to have on when your clothes are on fire is suspenders. because that just means that it's harder to get all your clothes off. And I watched this old man just burn and just whirl, just coming right at him. Just like a small senior citizen Italian flaming cyclone coming right at big Milford King with that. That man had 9-inch chest hair. Dude, that guy could cornrow his chest hair, man. And sometime he would let some of the black girls cornrow his chest hair. And you'd think that's a lie, and that's not even a lie. But that's one of the first fights I saw. But I got to watch some of these fights, man. I went and watched 2 fights the other night. And that Bisping St. Pierre was wild, dude. St. Pierre, I mean, that man, first of all, he might be French. He might be Canadian, you know? You don't even know, dude. I mean, he's so proper. He kind of looked like Lance Armstrong if Lance Armstrong got a hold of some actually good drugs, you know? Not that shit that was just making him bicycle, you know? Because anybody could damn bicycle, dude. I got a 7-year-old niece, you know, that's out there competing locally in cycling. You know, but to get out there and be UFCing, you know, excuse me, you got to really be into it, you know, and you got to have that high-class stuff going on inside of your body. But St. Pierre, man, he really got out there. And the way he finished off the fight at the end and was so like, just kindred about it afterwards. You know, he's respectful of the sport, respectful of the audience. And so was Bisping, man. He said the same stuff. He said, you know, that man's got a hell of a squeeze on him. He squeezed me out. And Bisping is wild, dude. He got blacked out. He didn't even tap out because you could tap your arm on the carpet. If you don't want to fight anymore, you can tap your arm on the carpet, you know? It's probably like at an old folks' home. If you've had too many pills, if they pilling you up, you just give that beat down and they stop the presses on that morphine drip or on them oxys. You know, they keep pop off them oxys. But, man, he just said, nah, I'm just going to go on all the way. I'm going to keep fighting until I'm unconscious. Man, that was incredible to see, dude. Because I will tap out before the fight starts. You know what I'm saying, dude? I will tap out. If we're supposed to fight tomorrow, dude, I'll tap out tonight before dessert. You know what I'm saying? I'll order 2 scoops of ice cream and fucking tap out right here at the dinner table. So that was impressive, man, just to see men to go to those depths, you know? To see men go that deep and get into their brains that much. And thank you guys for joining me this time on this past weekend. I'm going to hit a call right here. We had some callers that hit the hotline. The hotline is 985-664-9503. We had some callers that hit the hotline. And we were talking about what's real, what feels real to people. And then we had a couple other calls that came in. I want to get to some of them. But I appreciate you guys. I appreciate you guys being here with me. And let's get into this call right here. Here we go.
What's up, Theo? It's Devin calling again from Tampa.
What's up, Devin? Thank you for calling from Tampa, dude. Tampa, if you get down there to Ybor City, I remember I was down there, and they had a lot of men. It was being gentrified. The downtown there, Ybor City, or Ybor, or Y-B-O-R, Ybor, was being gentrified, and also gentrified by predominantly gay gentrymen. So it was wild because you had this neighborhood that was kind of thuggish, but also there was a lot of, homosexual men running around, you know, and no offense if you're a homosexual man, I might be homosexual when I get older, you know, so don't take that out of my cards until I've played them all. You know what I'm saying? Don't take that out of my deck and don't judge me until I've played them all. But so you had this wild mix down there of thugs and men that was trying to catch that D, you know, or catch that, you know, not all of them trying to catch that, but at least trying to catch a hug or look you in the eyes for a long time, then that's natural during a conversation. And I got out there and I kept having these dreams when I was living there, while I was staying there for a week, that I was getting jacked, you know, because they had a lot of thugs and gangbangers. And that I was getting jacked by gay gangbangers, you know? I kept having this dream that a dude would run up behind me and be like, give me all your money and let me suck on your dick for a second, you know? And I kept having that dream. And then the guy he took my wallet. He made me jerk off into my own wallet and took my wallet. So that's how that dream ended up. But anyhow, that's some of the stuff that I went through whenever I was being down there by Tampa. But let's go on, Devin. Thank you for calling.
I left you a voicemail earlier, but I was all over the fucking place, so I'm calling you again and fucking taking a mulligan on that last one.
And that's fine. I know sometimes if people hit the hotline, it can be a little nerve-wracking just leaving a voicemail, not knowing, if it's going into the ether or what. So I appreciate that. Onward.
But I wanted to call, maybe talk about what's real, as you said last episode. I was in Tallahassee last weekend with my friends, and it got me thinking of, what's real and just what's important to me. Because, we were just sitting on the couch doing whatever and, just talking shit. And
now, doing whatever sometimes can be drugs, or it can be, rare. I guess you could just be doing nothing also, nothing or drugs. Let's hear more.
And I think that's what's real, and that's probably the only thing that's real right now. You just have so many opinions on complete opposite sides of each other, and both sides, politically or just whatever, just seem to be so ridiculous these days. I can't even find myself having opinions anymore.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, it's like, is it even worth having an opinion anymore? It's almost kind of nice. It's almost like nobody wants to really hear anybody's opinion that much anymore. Especially if your opinion has to be right. If you have to be right. Oh, you know it all, do you, guy? Wow. Well, I'll be darned. Yeah, it's tough. It is. It's almost exhausting even to have opinions. That's interesting, man. Appreciate you sharing that thought. Let's hear the end of this call.
So what me and my friends, I think we tend to do and, value humor so much is because, we just really sit back and observe and just really make fun of it all.
And that's a good thing to do, man. There's a lot of good making fun of it all. Now, the problem I notice out here in Los Angeles is a lot of them making fun of it all is it's so one-sided. I mean, you can't really be universal these days I feel like in humor. Well, in humor you can try, but it's tough, man. It's very hard for people these days to see other people's perspectives or to really want to try to. And that's really tough for a lot of people. But yeah, is it worth even having opinions? Maybe it's not. Maybe it's a time when we can take a break from having some strong opinions, and just get into what makes us feel good. But yeah, spending time with your friends, that is pretty real, man. A buddy of mine, he's a musician. He does music and he can do the piano and he can do, I think, different types of instruments. I have to ask him. But he invited me over to watch the fights. And at first I was like, I don't know if I'm going to go. And it didn't have anything to do with my friend. It just had to do with me. What do I want to do? What do I want to get out of my, I'm comfortable. And then I said, you know what? I'm just going to go. I'm just going to go. And the second I get somewhere, I have a good time. Usually, unless it's an uncomfortable environment, like a freelance gun range or a damn, a birthday party for a 1-year-old. That shit is ridiculous, dude. If I'm one, and you see somebody throw me a birthday party, dude, bro, you could throw darts at everybody at that thing. Strong darts, pointy ones, big ones you have to throw with 2 hands. Because I don't want somebody throwing me a damn birthday party when I'm 1. Weird story, though. I did go to a birthday party for a 1-year-old before I had this point of view at Perry Farrell's house, who was a lead singer of Jane's Addiction, and that was interesting. But thank you for that call, man. Thank you for that call. I don't even know what my train of thought was right there. What were we thinking about? Let's hear a little bit more. Here we go.
Hey, Theo, what's going on, man? This is Pete from Pennsylvania.
Pennsylvania Pete! What's up, brother? How you feeling? You feeling good? Thank you for calling. Let's hear some more.
I love the podcast, dude. It's awesome. Very real. You seem like a super cool guy. And I was just wondering about the internet in general and internet addiction, because I feel like my default state is to go home and I just get on the computer. I get on the internet and I'm so sick of it. It's just like a default. I'm not improving. I got so many things that I want to do. And, I want to go out, talk to people, go learn the guitar, go train.
Yeah, it's funny, man. I found myself recently doing that on just with my phone. I notice two things. One, I'll go to my phone, and then two, I will, there's a couple of specific things that I'll get on, Instagrams or Twitters, or texting. And the most frustrating part is the new iPhone update or whatever. Dude, that makes everything takes an extra 5 seconds because it's slow. It's slow. It's not working accurate. It's like my phone got damn, mental disorder. It's almost like asking a dumb friend for something every time you want to use it. It's like it's got to check its pockets every time I ask him, to borrow. Every time I ask his phone to borrow $1, it's got to check its pockets. Where you should just hit me with that buck. But yeah, I feel you, man. It's a crazy addiction. Let's hear a few more of your thoughts on this.
But it's hard to find the time to do anything if all you do, you get home from work and you just go on the computer. So I'm thinking of totally getting rid of it. But yeah, let me know. Maybe I'll throw it out the window or something.
Well, look, man, that's a real thing, man, But that's a crazy. If you throw it out the window, can you imagine? Man, even the feeling I get when I don't have my phone, when I'm not sure where it is, it's unbelievable. And it's crazy to think that other things are illegal, but that having a phone is not. It's not deemed like an addictive. Like you can't have cocaine because it's addictive, because it's bad for you. But a phone, we can have it. There's so much business tied to it. There's no way they would ever keep it away, And we would probably be uproarious. A lot of us would be at first, but I bet, man, 2 weeks after being, separated from those things, we would go back to. I mean, that's the thing. Young people, these kids, they don't have any idea what it was like to just be a person. To use your imagination every time you wanted to think of something or to see something. Like that's the number one thing I feel like that we're killing off is our imagination. Like how is imagination supposed to survive, through time, like genetically, in the face of technology? I don't see how it can. I mean, I was talking to my niece, and she's 7 or 8. Hell, she might be 9, dude. I'm kind of a mid-range uncle. And I wonder, I was asking her about, I said, use your imagination. She's like, what is that? She's like, is that on the phone? And it just blew my mind. She thought it was an app. And it's just like, then what? When imagination is dead, man, we're locked. We're locked. We're locked into advancement that's based only in, it would seem like in hardware then, only in what is tangible, very tangible. Like, I don't want to say just in technology, but I don't know, imagination used to be the thing that was the thing that kept me alive the most, was that I could escape my reality by having an imagination. And I just worry that if kids don't have that in the future, then what is that? If that doesn't evolve with us as humans, then what does it look like? What does it look like when there's no imagination? When the only thing you're able to see is only what's in front of you. And that when you go look inside your brain to create something for yourself, you're unable to. It's bizarre. It's bizarre. And it's like how, like, at what level of a phone is it still helpful to us? I don't find it that helpful. But then with that said, I'll be blasting out a link to this. I'll be posting something from this on Instagram or Twitter or Facebook. So it's like certainly of use, but is it as addictive as a drug? Everyone's addicted to the phone. Addicted. But then were there other things people were addicted to when they first came out? Shoes, spitting on somebody. Dude, I bet a long time ago people were like, no, I would never spit on somebody. And then somebody spit on somebody and somebody's like, oh, fuck yeah, I'm spitting on somebody. Or the first person that showed up with shoes, I'm sure everybody's like, what the fuck? Constance is afraid to have her feet on the earth. What a nutcase, you know? She likes to, you know, she likes to be upstairs, but only like a half inch upstairs, you know? And Constance has on shoes. But then now, Constance was a damn Constance Conquistador, you know? She was a pioneer because everybody have shoes on. You know, or the first person to grow their eyebrows out. You know, because if you look at a lot of pictures and stuff on cave drawings and all that hieroglyphics, a lot of people, they don't have eyebrows. They don't put eyebrows on people. So I know there's not a lot of science out there to back it up, but I don't think eyebrows were always the most popular, facial follicle haberdashery going on, you know? I mean, they're really just mustaches for your eyes. That's all they are. And I think there was probably somebody came along, you know, that first day, a guy who'd been living out on his own for a little bit, you know, maybe ate some plants that made him feel kind of, you know, erotic. And he got wild. And he came in with that good, you know? And that's how I think that, you know, having eyebrows really took over. Was some dude, you know, got shroomed out and, you know, for probably like a month. I mean, shroomed out. You know what I'm saying, man? Where he was just had the rings of Saturn around his neck every time he opened his eyes. You know what I'm saying? I'm talking about where, you know, he might have seen the Mars rover land on his cheek because that dude was living in outer space. You know what I'm saying? He might have woke up with a Lance Armstrong taste in his mouth because that dude had that galactic breath. You know what I'm saying? Shroomed out. And then he said, you know, I'm going to grow my eyebrows out. And I'm going to live a little longer. I'm going to have mustaches above my eyes. Because I'll be damned if each one of my optical circles ain't going to be fucking a Burt Reynolds. So you know that. But I agree, it's addictive. Let's hear more. Let's hear another call here.
Theo, it's Bo. I'm high again. Damn it. But,
Okay, we got Bo. He's high again. Didn't know you were high the first time. Thank you for calling, Bo.
You asked what was real. And I took a few days and I thought about it. And I think it's family and friendship. And it doesn't necessarily have to be the people you were raised by or the people that are around you right now, but it's the people that you can just fuck up so bad and they still love you.
Okay, so that's what's real is people, you know, family and friendship, and we had the same thing that Devin called in about, and also that people you can fuck up and they'll just forgive you no matter what, and I'm guessing those are the people that are closest to you, so that's kind of a way to reframe them. Yeah, I mean, that is pretty real, you know. I guess I see, you know, mothers that when their sons get convicted of murder, now they got snapped because women are doing most of the murdering. Or when their daughters get, you know, convicted of, you know, conspiring to, you know, derail an election or whatever, you know, or their sons do, that you know, that the mother is forgiving, you know, that the mother is forgiving. And I've always wondered how that's capable. And I think because it's just probably that some of that familial, something that's beyond calculable. Yeah, that can't really be quantified. And that's that connection between strong friends or strong family. Let's hear more.
At times whenever you don't even love yourself, I think that is the only thing that's real. Maybe not the only thing, that's probably, you know, that's, I don't know, everything. But to me, I don't know. I'm kind of losing track of where I'm going right now because I just smoked a dab and I'm pretty high.
All right, okay. Well, I mean, there you go. You know, there you go. Look, I appreciate the honesty. You were high when you called a different time and you were high when you called this time, man. But I respect that. Dude, that's brave to be high and call in. That's brave, man. That's cool. I respect that, dude, for you to have that, you know, because when I would get high, I'd be afraid to do anything, man. I'd be afraid to do anything except try to touch a little bit of crotch on it, you know, around a local crotch. you know, or maybe, and even that sometimes I'd be scared, you know. You ever have a girl come over and you're real high and they start looking like a gremlin or something, and you start being afraid they're going to suck all the blood out of your body? But yeah, I appreciate that call. It reminds me, man, I saw Buzz Aldrin this week. I saw Buzz Aldrin. If you're not familiar with Buzz Aldrin, he is a human man who was on the moon. Think about the moon. Go outside. Look at the moon. Guess who's been up there? Buzz Aldrin. I met Buzz Aldrin, dude. I shook his hand, dude. I shook his damn moon paw. That's what I call it. And it was beautiful, dude. And it was truly beautiful. And Buzz Aldrin, you know, you almost get a buzz off of Buzz Aldrin, you know? Because some people, you get high off them. You get around them, you get that hit. You know, you get that hit off of their vibe. And next thing you know, what I'm saying, you're a living Thanksgiving, you know? You got that energy going through you, you know? You got them turkeys clucking down in your ducats, you know what I'm saying? And that's what happened with Buzz Aldrin. He gives you that vibe. And so then as soon as I got home, I went and read up all about the moon, you know? And the moon is basically just this little, I mean, that's just Earth's little side piece, you know? And this is a unique fact about when Buzz and Neil landed on the moon. They placed the American flag, right? They put it in the ground, very a stoic moment, you know, very exciting. America first, we got here. And then they got back in the shuttle and they pressed whatever buttons, closed everything up, shut down shop, closed the moon roof at that point, and took off back to Earth. But whenever they pressed the thrusters or whatever, the propulsion from the jets to get them back off of the moon's surface knocked down the flag. So literally as they're flying, they're looking out the window and the fucking flag fell down. And they're like, what, fuck? And that's it. And they couldn't go back. There's no way to turn around. So if you want to know sometime what it's like to just live in that, you know, like, you know, sometimes everything's not perfect. Not even for Buzz Aldrin or Neil Armstrong. Sometimes you go to the moon and you have a plan of how it's going to be, and it's not. And I'll be honest, that's how I felt starting the podcast today, dude. I didn't have a fucking plan. But sometimes you don't have a plan. You got to go anyway. You know? So that's what we're doing. But I met Buzz Aldrin, dude. And I remember meeting him. And will he remember meeting me? I doubt that. Let's hear another call.
What's up, man? I called in last week, but there's this thing going on. We have a family friend in our community, in the Indian community, and this dude he's a millionaire. He owns a bunch of businesses.
Okay, you have a family friend. It's an Indian community, Native American Indian, it sounds like, and he owns a bunch of businesses. So you have a successful Native American man who lives in your community. Let's take it forward.
And he's really good.
And he's really good.
Like, financially. He has a family, kid, wife, and now, for some reason, last year, he decided to, like, hook up with one of my friend's sister.
Ooh, that's a wild move because you sound like a young buck, and so now you got a financially secure Native American gentleman dating your friend's sister. Let's hear more.
And he did that, and he started smoking crack.
Okay, double up.
And a bunch of random stuff happened to him. And now he just got out of jail from staying there for 1 year. And he left jail, and now we live in Louisville, and Norton Commons is kind of a rich neighborhood. Mm-hmm. So he had 26 guns in a Norton Common house, which is a millionaire's house. And they found crack pipes with some kind of drug residue.
I'm guessing that drug residue was crack, brother. Onward.
I know this sounds really stupid, but what kind of person really does that to themselves if they have everything going for them? It kind of reminds me of the Harvey Weinstein issue, but I don't know how those will be related.
I mean, I'll tell you what kind of, I mean, this is going to be an educated guess for me. What kind of person does that? An addict. You know, this man is probably an addict, you know, and you have to look at, this man is probably ill. You know, the man, obviously, if there's drugs there, he's buying guns. There's probably a lot of paranoia. It sounds like comes with a lot of that crack use. I've heard, I don't know, so that's me, you know, guesstimating. But if you're on that crack, dude, they don't call it, they don't call it repair. You know, they call it crack. You know what I'm saying? It's not it's not increasing the foundation. They don't call it caulk. You ain't out there smoking caulk. You out there smoking crack. Because crack will whack you out. Crack will put some chinks in your armor. You know? Crack will break it down, literally. You know, crack will turn you into a San Andreas Fault person. That's what crack does, man. And so that's the answer to your question. These other things he's doing sound like dark side effects of crack, of drug use. You know, he's chasing younger women. I mean, you know, the chasing younger women thing, that can happen. You know, there's something in a man where you can't always kill that off. You can't, even when you get married and fall in love, you sometimes can't escape that. You know, that desire, you know, to want to be sexual or do sex with something younger, something, you know, that's more closer to, you know, the younger side of life than the adult side. And I don't mean that in any sort of pedophilia type of way, but, you know, you might be attracted to a younger lady, a woman, you know. So, but yeah, that's an addict. That's your question. Who would do that? You know, and I don't know if you're calling us to kind of tattle on this dude or what, and it's okay. I mean, I guess you just, you know, and a lot, that's addiction. And it's the same thing with Harvey Weinstein. He got addicted to whatever was going on. You know, sure, he had some dirty behaviors and he, you know, was living in, you know, I mean, this dude was breakdancing on the, you know, this dude was breakdancing on the dance floor of sin. He's out there just, you know, this dude was probably double jointed in his dick because he's out there straight up cock twerking, you know, and doing the dark arts and, you know, imposing his will onto women who did not want his will, you know, is what he's been accused of. And that's, but after a while, there's a sickness there. You get used to whatever you get used to it. And it's addiction. And at some points, you have to have some empathy. You know, it's sick to see somebody do something, but it's also sad to see them be sick, you know? And I think that's probably what you got in the neighborhood, man. You got a crack artist around you, you know? So if you want to, you know, lace his pipe with a little bit of caulk, now you're talking business. So I think that's what you should look into, brother. But God bless you. Thank you for calling. All right, guys, we're going to get to some more calls in just a moment. But before we do, I want to have Ari Manis has just arrived, and we're going to have him in studio here in just a second. I just want to get a catch up with what's going on in his weird world. So we'll be right back with Ari Manis. This past weekend.
Yeah, man, maybe having him on as a sidekick for, like, segments might be a good idea, because it is important for us to have you, you know, it feels good, but it feels like it's us and you. I think that's why a lot of people open up the way that they do.
They just want you.
Well, I don't think that that's what they want, but it seems like, you know, they
don't want me.
Well, what did the gentleman say?
He said he wanted me just in a little baby.
In doses.
Baby pieces.
Microdosing.
Microdose of
dab.
Yeah.
They want a dab, they don't want a joint.
Sometimes that's how it starts.
Yeah.
Sometimes it starts with a dab, and then they go for the joint later.
That's true, and that could happen, man.
Yeah.
But I want to say I'm happy to have you in today, man. Thank you for coming by.
Thanks for having me. It's always good to be here in the Theo Vaughn studio.
Yep, that's Ari Manis, guys, is joining us today. We've had Ari on.
Man, I mean, I haven't been on probably in 4 or 5 weeks.
Yeah. And last we checked, you had taken a girl, you were the girlfriend. You guys had just visited I don't want to call it didn't seem like a honeymoon getaway, but a weekend trip down to down to those vaginal swap meets down there in Mexico, down to the prostitution houses.
Yeah, the brothel in Tijuana. That was a fun night. But since then, we have unfortunately broken up, me and the girlfriend.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay, and what was the cause of that, do you feel like?
I feel like this might be a long, boring story, but I'll just tell you it.
Okay.
You tell me what you think. But I loaned her some money to fix her car.
Ooh.
You know, I don't make a lot of money.
Right.
By the way, I'm not rolling by any means, but she needed a car, and I didn't want to give her rides to work. I got over that after a day, so we need to get your car fixed.
Okay.
So I loaned her almost $700.
Right.
This was a few weeks ago. The first of the month comes around.
Mm-hmm.
I send her a text because I'm paying the rent that we both live in, the rent to our apartment. And I said, hey, just checking in on that money because I'm paying the rent right now, so I'm just seeing if you had it. She said, oh, I don't have it yet. I said, okay, for sure. She said, are you mad? I said, no, I'm just really broke.
Okay.
And she said, well, you should consider getting a second job.
Wow. And do you agree with her?
I mean, the thing is, first off, if I want a second job or not, that's up to me.
Right.
But secondly, maybe I wouldn't need a second job if you give me the money back that you owe me.
Yeah.
So it kind of flipped this switch in my head where I was like, what? How, like, where do you get the gall, the nerve to tell me to get a second job when you owe me $700?
Yeah. And gall, a lot of senior citizens say gall. My grandmother used to say
Did
gall.
I use the gall correctly in that context?
Great, but a lot of seniors used to use that, and almost that word's dying off. So I'm glad, literally dying off. And both my grandparents.
I'm bringing it back here on this past weekend.
I'm glad to hear it come back. But I'm saying so that flipped the switch in your head.
It just pissed me off, you know, that she would have the nerve to say that to me when she owes me money. So we started fighting, of course, back and forth. And then
does she have a job?
She has a full-time job, 9 to 5.
Okay.
Over in Culver City.
Okay.
Right? Maybe I shouldn't say that. Over in Los Angeles. And so I ended up breaking up with her. And she came home, and we cried. And I think she realized that she messed up in this situation, and she said she wouldn't do it again. But we just fight all the time. I mean, I've talked about a few fights just on this podcast.
Yeah. Did you feel like you were trying to get out of this anyway, and this was just that opportunity?
Maybe a little bit, because I have talked about it before, but in the moment, I wasn't thinking this is my out. I was thinking this is bullshit. I'm ending this. So we broke up, and it's been 2 or 3 days now, and I miss her. And when it hits about midnight...
Have you been masturbating to her, thoughts of her?
No, I've been using the regular porno.
Okay, so you're not using,
Pornhub
her, like...
No, not old pictures or anything like that, or sex tapes that home videos we've recorded.
Well, you guys did all that.
Using that. Yeah, I got all that.
And you saved all that.
Yeah, I'm not saying I'm going to keep it forever.
Right.
I may or may not. I feel like that's up to me. I think we both agreed to doing it. Therefore, unless she asked me to delete it, I think I have the right to keep it. We were both consenting adults.
Who's on the tape?
Me and her.
Yeah, you are too. Remember that, though.
Yeah,
that's
I'm
the thing
on it
about
too.
the sex tapes.
Yeah, I definitely don't want to release it.
Yeah. Well, I wouldn't release it. I mean, who's gonna buy it? You know, 20 guys at the Comedy Store. You know what I'm saying? Who's gonna?
I think
actually maybe a few more. Sorry,
I think more people would release it. Not for me,
Yeah.
for her. She's an attractive young lady.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah, she's out of my league.
Yeah.
Which brings me to my next thing that I was gonna say is I miss her.
Okay.
And
do you feel like you made too big of an issue about the money?
well, to me, it wasn't the money. It was the. Yeah, I don't mind loaning her money. I trust her that she'd pay me back, and at the end of the day, money is money. But it was kind of just the way she treated me after owing me money.
Okay, so you lend her the money with the stipulation she was going to pay you back. Mm-hmm. Was there a timeline on how soon?
No, just as soon as she could. But then it was just the fact that she was telling me I should get a second job,
right?
That I should quit complaining. It's like
Were you complaining a lot about the money?
No, it was a one time on the first of the month when rent was due.
How long after you loaned her the money did she? Was that text exchange?
Week, maybe a week after that.
Yeah, well, so a week later, somebody's probably not going to have the money.
Right, but I wasn't making a big deal of it.
Right.
I wasn't saying, where's my money? I just said, hey, I'm paying the rent. Do you, by chance, have the money?
So really just kind of also a reminder to keep it fresh.
Yeah, keep it fresh. But my question for you is, I miss her right now, but we were fighting all the time back and forth, off and on. Should I take her back?
Is she willing to come back?
Yeah.
Are you willing to excuse a $700 payment?
Yeah, it's not the money thing. It was just kind of...
Right. What's going to change?
Exactly. I don't know.
Do you love her?
I love her.
Wow. You know, I don't know. That's a tough one, man. It's a tough one when there's love involved there. There's money involved. There's obviously some loneliness. It seems like you seem a little lonely.
Yeah.
Not a lot, but some.
Sure.
Because you're a sexual I mean, you're out there.
I'm a deviant, number one. I mean, I tried going to the brothel this last weekend to try and make myself feel better.
Did you?
Maybe for about 10 minutes.
You went all the way down to Mexico for 10 minutes?
I went to Mexico. I was doing shows anyway. But
right.
yeah.
You were doing shows in Mexico.
In San Diego.
Okay, so then you went into another country.
And then after that,
I went 10 minutes for some type of a sex exchange.
Possibly.
Okay,
yeah.
I mean, look, it's okay. I'm just saying.
Yeah,
let's don't be like,
I'm going through hard times.
Yeah, let's just don't say you're
I don't want
wandering around
judgment.
San Diego.
If you're judging me right now,
I just want to get the facts straight. Like, so you're wandering. I don't want to be like, oh, I was wandering around and just,
I went to the Hong Kong.
Okay.
With a friend.
And the Hong Kong is for those you got to know, the Hong Kong is the sexual establishment, the distribution center in Mexico.
It's a legal brothel.
Illegal brothel, my bad.
Tijuana.
Okay.
Legal.
Legal.
It's allowed, yeah. And I went there to try and make myself feel better.
Did you purchase a lady or purchase some service?
I may have, yeah.
It's fine.
Yeah, I did.
Okay.
Yeah, I did.
And did you feel better?
No. At the end of the night, I didn't feel better about doing that. So, I mean, the issue is if I take her back, forget about even this story of why we broke up. We fight all the time. Maybe this relationship isn't meant to be. Maybe it is. I don't know. I'm conflicted right now. I miss her, but maybe it's just because I'm lonely and maybe I need to move on.
Yeah. It's a tough one, man. I'm not in a relationship right now, but I'm sure that a lot of our listeners are, so I'm going to turn this one over to you guys. If you guys have thoughts or advice, is that cool with you?
Yeah.
Okay. I want to see what people think, man, because you're already kind of polarizing a lot of people that don't enjoy you being here. And there's a lot of people that do. And but I thought it would be neat to have Ari on and come and share about some stuff that's going on. I do appreciate you sharing, man. I know that this relationship's been a crazy thing. I mean, this is a girl he met after 3 weeks. They moved in together and have been making love and living together. Ari has a snake and a gun. You're a gun owner and a reptile
I have a
owner.
12 gauge shotgun. I have a pet rose hair tarantula and a western hognose snake.
So this is the kind of man that you're dealing with, but yeah, I'm sure a lot of our callers out there, a lot of our listeners will have an idea. Is that just a relationship? You figure it out, you deal with it. How does that go? If you have any thoughts, hit the hotline 985-664-9503. I'm going to get back to a couple more of you guys' calls. Ari, will you come back this week? Maybe we'll do like a follow-up where we can listen to some of the calls that come in.
Sure.
Is that cool?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, man, I'm sorry you're going through this kind of stuff. It's tough, man. It's tough, dude. It's tough. You have to. I don't know. I'm lonely. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think everyone is.
Yeah.
It's a normal thing.
Yeah, we all. Yeah. Well.
It's human.
It's human, man. We're humans. Let's keep it human. We'll be right back. I'm gonna get Ari out of here. We'll be right back, just with the regular program. This past weekend. Let's take one more call, man. Here we go.
Yo, Theo, my name's Greg. I'm going to try to take this slow because I'm a little slow.
It's okay, man. I've been slow, and I probably still am slow. So, game recognized game, baby boy. I finished college. I had about 270 hours of college. 1 degree. So, you do the math, dude. Daddy was taking his time. Thank you for calling in, Rick.
I'm 51. I just moved out to California in January of this year, 2017.
Welcome.
Got out of a long relationship, 16 years, of which the last 12 were without sex.
Okay, so 12 years without sex. That's 12 years of jerker. That's a new, that's 12 years a slave to some hand activity, but that's okay, man. I appreciate you sharing that because that's a real thing. That some relationships, that's not always it's not always part of the definition of what a marriage is, composed of. Sex ain't always in the recipe. Let's hear more.
So I don't know what it means to be a man, but that part of my life didn't feel much like a man. What else?
Yeah, that can make you feel unmanly, dude. Even if some of it's, even I notice if I've been in a relationship, because I've been in a relationship where I wasn't even being sexual, and that made me feel, it makes you feel like something's wrong with you. But sometimes you're in the relationship and it's not about, there's relationships I've been in where it's just about getting that doink, You know what I'm saying? Hitting that wet, copping that stem, hopping that, you know what I'm saying, hopping that crop, you know, killing that canal, you feel me? And sometimes it's not about that. Sometimes it's about other things, and then that's just a side item. You know, when that side item is not on your plate, you know, if they take the fries off your plate or they take those greens off your plate, you still got to eat that steak. And so that's a lot of people's marriages. It seems like as you get into it, I could imagine that the day-to-day is just chewing on that steak. Even though you had that steak, you know that steak is going to be pissed, or you know that steak going to leave their coffee cup in the kitchen, or you know that steak ain't going to leave enough milk for you, or you know that steak going to be furious if you can't find the baby's shoes. But that's the steak. That's the steak of it. And sometimes you stay because that's your steak, man. That's your steak. You grilled it. Y'all cooking it together. You grilled it. That's your steak. And so you saying these side items got took away, but you still got the steak that you lived with for 12 years of steak. So I won't make any more 12 Years a Slave references, title movie references. Let's go. Here we go. More.
Got fears, lots of fears, a lot of regret, a lot of stuff that I hadn't accomplished in life. But I got my shit together. After 28 years on the big pharmaceuticals for antidepressants and anxiety, and 16 years on painkillers after being hit by a car, and
Ooh. I'd love to know what kind of car, if you don't mind dropping that call in or a text into the hotline, 985-664-9503. You're talking to a Trans Am survivor. Onward.
falling off a railing. I weaned myself all that stuff off. The pain meds. I had my last effexor January 3rd. Still do a little of the devil's cabbage, if you know what I mean, but that was with psychiatrist and therapist blessing.
Well, man, congratulations on getting off that effexor, you know? I mean, I know that those pills are powerful, dude. I know that they're more powerful than us. And I don't know why they made them like that. You know, why that these companies think that we're so, you know, we don't have enough will inside of us to also help get us through the tough times. But I applaud you for that, man. Congratulations. Let's hear more.
They gave me the clean bill of health. Sent me on my way out to California. Start things over. I don't know what it means to be a man. That's what I'm trying to figure out now. I'm not in the cloud anymore, and that feels real good. And I got to thank you for talking about feelings instead of how you doing, how you feeling. That's what it's all about. I'm feeling good. I cry a lot, cry at good stuff. I like nature, man. I'm doing the yoga. I'm at the park in Long Beach doing yoga on the bluff 6 days a week.
Dang.
I went from 240 to 160.
Wow, and I'm going to stop you there, man, and I appreciate it. Because I'm just thinking about change, man. It sounds like you have a big change. A lot of change has occurred in your life. And this feels really, at 51. I mean, you sound 30. You know? You sound like the energy of a 30. Man, that's 30. You know, you got, to just to be able to hear that we can change at 51 is that's exciting. You know, that sounds inspirational. Because I know it's harder sometimes as we get older. You know, it's harder. We get set in our ways. But one of the biggest lies I ever heard was that a leopard can't change his spots. I don't believe that, man. I don't believe that for a second. I don't believe that whatever you're in or whatever you're stuck in, that it can't be changed. And that's why I love this call, man. I love it. And I appreciate you calling because we need to hear this. You know, whatever it is we're stuck in. You know, sometimes you just have to get through. Sometimes, you know, if you committed to a relationship, you committed to raising a child, you get through. You chew that steak. You get through it. But you can change it if things need to be changed or tidied up. You know? And we try not to waste our time. You know, we try not to stay on the things that are going to derail us. You know, the pills, the antidepressants you brought up. I'm on the antidepressants, man. I'm afraid to get off. That's crazy because I don't know if I am, you know. I mean, I know I've suffered from depression, but I don't know if I always will. But now I'm addicted to the pills. I'm afraid to stop taking them. That's crazy, man. You know? You know, we got people who are addicted to our phones. You know? But we also have people who are addicted to realizing what's real out there. You know, the friends, the family, the thing that makes us feel good. You know, hearing somebody else's voice and not giving into what it becomes habitual. You know, that internet, it's just habitual. You know, the things that are habitual. You know, sitting there when your wife's watching a TV show, even though she's just watching TV, if you're just sitting on your computer, that's even more isolational, really, I find. When you can sit there with your wife and also watch the show together, you know, do the Jeopardy and see who gets more right, or do the Wheel of Fortune. And it's little things like that, you know, that are real. And sure, I think that's kind of a good thing to do these days if you can find that common balance. If you can't get completely unhinged, you know, disconnected, can you find a common balance? You know, can you find enough of a balance where you get you know, maybe there's still some technology involved, there's still something involved, but at least you guys are both involved, you know? I mean, I think that's the goal these days, is to have a comfortable balance. Don't get too, you know, back off of these things that can be addictive. You know, you got to tell the kids no to put down that mind sweep. You know, to put down that whatever it is, warrior wizard or whatever it is, cat taffany or whatever it is, cat craft. Because the kids will do that. You know, and you got to give them a frisbee, teach them what a frisbee is. You know, my nephew thought a frisbee just something the dog eat out of. What the fuck? No, that's an instrument for joy. That's something you throw and your little brother goes and gets, and if he doesn't go get it for you, then you beat his ass. You know? That's what it was, dude. That was a get your ass beat disc. That's what it was around my house. So sometimes you got to get these kids off this mind sweep. Give them a frisbee, put them in the yard. It's hot out there. Well, guess what? It's hot as hell if you don't live here anymore. And I'll kick your ass out if you ain't willing to play in the yard. But I want to thank you guys, man, for just calling in about the thoughts from last week. I've had some couple calls about addiction and stuff like that, and I want to drop those in. But you know, I'm getting to it as I can. I'm excited for some of the new stuff that we have going on. Check out theovon.com/store. I will see you in Huntsville, Alabama, coming up November 16th through the 19th. And then I will also be at Cowboys. I think that's what it's called. December 1st or December 2nd, and that's in Calgary. I think it's December 1st, Calgary, Canada. And that's all I have right now. That's what's on the calendar. So come check me out. Stand Up Live Huntsville, November 16th through the 19th. And then in Calgary, December 1st. I'll put the Calgary date on my calendar so you know exactly where that show is. Thank you guys for your support. And on the way out, this is Spencer Jacob Grau is going to take us home today. And this is his song, Celebrate Living. Spencer Jacob. What is it? It's something you can pet? It's something you can't pet? What is a tiny sandhoo? And I have no idea. I have no idea. But if you don't know, if you want to think about what a tiny sandhoo is, you go ahead and think about it as well. Because anybody can think about anything. That's one thing I know for sure. You know what I'm saying? Boy, I'll be thinking about things. People could say, you can't do this, you can't do that, but when you look inside of my head, if you could see the picture shows that's going on, because I'll be thinking about it all. But there he is, whatever that beautiful animal is, Tiny Sandhoo playing a little bit of Guns N' Roses' Paradise City underwater. And it had me thinking, where's my Paradise City? You know, am I always going to live in, you know, in turmoil? Am I always going to live, you know, in uncertainty? Or am I going to choose the next time that I, you know, step out of my truck or step off of my bed in the morning, you know, am I going to choose that, okay, today, wherever my feet are, this is my Paradise City, you know? Because it can be your promised land if you make it your promised land, you know? And sometimes it just starts with a promise to yourself that your perception and the way you look at things is going to be a little bit brighter. Because trust me, I drug around a dirty sack of bad attitudes for at least 15 years. More, maybe even more. If I could remember more years of my life, I would say definitely more. And so I know what it's like to carry that negative attitude and that negative energy around, and I don't recommend it. I don't recommend it to anyone. I honestly Do not. Thank you guys for joining me, man. I'm so happy to be here. It is Monday, November 13th. Thank you guys for joining me on this past weekend. Man, I had a wild one. I have to let you know that I will be in Huntsville, Alabama this Thursday, the 16th through Sunday, the 19th. Friday night, I'm just featuring for a local gentleman. They have a special show going on, but I will be on stage. But if you're going to come out just to see me, I recommend Thursday, Saturday, Sunday. As well, I want to let you know and thank you, Gray Block Pizza. That's Gray Block Pizza in Santa Monica. Ooh, Los Angeles, they say you don't got pizza? Guess what? You do. Gray Block Pizza. Good as it gets. Tastes like you've had it before. It'll make your mouth wish that it was a stomach. Because after you swallow it, your mouth gets greedy that it only had it for such a short time. And then your stomach's going to be holding on to it for a while. That's Gray Block Pizza. But I'm here. I'm coming to you from Laughlin, Nevada. Do you even know that? Don't assume where I'm at. Okay? I'm coming to you from Laughlin, Nevada. Or Nevada. Drove up here yesterday to do a show at a church. And it was at St. John. I believe it was at St. John Church. Dude, I thought it was going to go swimmingly. And it went off the rails. I mean, I thought it was going to be in like a side room of a church, right? You think you're getting a gig at a church. And look, I can handle it. People, think my material is super edgy sometimes, but a lot of it's not. I got a lot of great, I can tell the stories and, and share stuff from my childhood. And I can keep people, intertwined like that and intertuned into what's going on. But man, I got in there and it was in the actual church, dude, where like the reverend and the preacher, the pastor, where he preaches, It was in his doghouse right there at the front. And next thing you know, I get up, I'm telling a few jokes, and I use the word erect. Erect. And erect is when your penis starts looking around for something. For some other crotch. Or even, hell, if it's been a long time, could be your own crotch. Or even if it's like your penis heard something in the distance, Sometime even if your penis, that's what it is though. And I said erect, and some people walked out. And I mean, look, I don't blame them. I'm saying erect. I'm in a church. But man, it didn't go swimmingly. So then I had to stop telling jokes, right? So suddenly one of the parishioners in the crowd just raises their hand and asks a question. So now we started it into a conversation, right? And then I get people laughing. They're asking questions. I'm sharing things from my life, just experience from my own life. We get it going. And I really feel a lot of gratitude because those people saved the day. Instead of sitting there and being miserable about what was going on, about, well, this guy's up here, dropping erection words into the air, they decided to be like, well, let's get involved and let's change the vibe. And I was able to be, open enough to change the vibe, and we kept the energy going. And then for about 30 minutes, we did a Q&A that was full of laughter and joy. A lot of the people were senior citizens. And, I grew up with a senior citizen. My father was a senior citizen when I was born. My father born in 1910. And so suddenly I had this ground to really relate to them on, and we were all just sharing stories. And it turned out being a pretty good experience. But at first it was a really bad experience. I mean, I was sweating in front of about 100 people in this small church that asked me to come and perform. And, well, sometimes you get gigs like that. That's the thing. I've had gigs where I flew into, Guantanamo Bay, and I got to do some shows there one time. Was, amazing. And then sometimes you have gigs where you are sweating in front of people at a church, and they're coming to your aid, man. So that just happened this evening here in Laughlin, Nevada. Good people. And one of them started talking about rheumatism during the show. We're talking to each other because at the end it was cute. Like I could not tell any more jokes. I was so afraid to tell any jokes that I was going to really offend someone. So, and one of the seniors mentioned rheumatism. And I don't know what rheumatism is. And I was like, well, is it like when you're in a room and, you're really scared? You're like scared of being in that room. And they were laughing. And then I was like, because if it is, that's what I have right now. I have rheumatism. Because, man, it was one of the toughest moments I've had in a show. That's for sure. What else, man? Oh, I went to Reptile this weekend. And Repticon, that's reptiles. And con men, which are really people, it's not con men, it's people that sell reptiles, but they're definitely trying to 2 for 1, 3 for 1, throwing in a salamander, throw in a swirly frog, throw in one of these little Buster Douglas geckos, I'm like, is that a scientific name? He's like, it's all black, it's a little bit blue around the eyes. It's a Buster Douglas gecko. And I'm like, well, I guess Buster Douglas might have had some different, unique skin tints, but that seemed like a wild name. But I got to watch some tarantulas have sex. And that's alarming, dude. That's alarming. When you see tarantulas, first thing I noticed about a tarantula was if you hold onto a tarantula, you can barely feel it in your hand. You can barely feel a tarantula. And it can be sneaking around on your skin and you don't even know. It can be just kind of bouncing around on your skin and you don't even know. Like it's looking for Easter candy. I mean, and dude, there's something about them where it felt like this motherfucker knew me and knew that I had cheated on some of my taxes before. That's exactly what this thing, the second they kept putting it on me, it would go straight up, try to go straight up my arm like it was going for my heart, like it was like it was going to go inside of me or something and see what was going on inside of me. Very scary, very, very scary for me, them tarantulas or ranches, or chulas. Some people call them chulas, but I think that might even be racially offensive to Latinos. I don't know if it is, but it felt like it was when I was saying it, Let me get them chulas, and look at these chulas fucking. Because we got to watch them have sex. I was down there working for the chive. I was doing stuff for the chive. And the chive is a vegetable. That's ditch onions. But it's also a website where you can look at breasts and pictures of cats and animals and fun stuff like that. And I was down there doing some work for them. And we went to Repticon. And, dude, the people that work at these conventions, I don't know if anybody ever been involved in a convention. But the people that work at conventions, dude, it's wild. A lot of them they're drinking, they're on uppers, they're in the back hitting, balming up their insides with that dust, getting funny on that puff, they're doing it all. A lot of them are back there just re-spackling their innards with that freaking Kool-Aid powder. You know what I'm saying? And that's that shit that'll make a jug of sugar water, come crashing through your wall, Kool-Aid Man. Remember that commercial? Kool-Aid Man can. Well, a lot of these people that work at these shows and these things are like that. They do, a lot of them are on uppers. So you'd be in the bathroom and these people out there, they're popping little uppers and, Quaaludes and, buzz saws and freaking whisper bears or whatever they need to get it in their system to stay awake. That cocaine, that orange juice powder, whatever they're doing. You know what I'm saying? That freaking, they're back there snorting fucking dried up Starburst crust and all kinds of shit like that. Just to make themselves get that high. But then they're out there slanging snakes and reptiles. Dude, one guy had this little bin, this little Rubbermaid bin, had about 200 baby tarantulas in it. Think about that. Dude, they were so little. Man, I was scared. Like in the beginning, we got there and they had to hold a snake. And look, I've been around snakes, When I was growing up, one of my best friends used to, he's best friend for a little while, and he was also a real angry boy in our town. And he used to always go catch snake because he couldn't say S. So he used to go catch snake. And he'd make you go catch snake with him. And he would get pissed if you didn't go catch snake. So, dude, he'd be like, come on, man, we're going to get some snake. And I did not want to go with this dude, but I did not want to get beaten by him either. So the fear that I felt as a child having to hunt snakes when I didn't want to be hunting snakes because I didn't even like snakes, okay? But also the fear was if I didn't hunt for snakes, that I was going to get my ass beat. And that was scary. That was scary for me. That was scary for me. So I think some of this brought back feelings of that, of hunting snakes and all of that. And just a lot. It was a lot going on. But it was a wild weekend for me. I went and saw Morrissey. I saw Billy Idol. I haven't been to a concert in Los Angeles in a long time. Like at the Hollywood Bowl. They have a huge place you can see a concert. And I know this show is all over the place right now. Look, it's just sometimes it's going to be like that. That's the week. That's the weekend. It's midnight right now. I'm in Laughlin. And that was the weekend that I had. But it was a lot of joy too, man. And you guys hit me with a lot of calls. I didn't post up the Ari thing this week because there wasn't a lot of interest in it. And so I don't think we're going to have Ari on anymore. And that's not a knock to Ari. I love Ari. There may be a reason in the future. But at the time, I think we're just going to keep things kind of like it is. And I hope to get into some call-ins. We got a new producer that's going to be helping me out on Wednesday. We're going to put out a Thursday episode this week as well. So I'm really excited about that. And that's just some of the new stuff that's going on that I wanted to fill you guys in on. Also, last week we were talking about what's real, right? And I didn't get to, there was a voicemail that I put up on the Patreon because I'll do, after content on the Patreon. And you can be a part of Patreon if you want. Patreon.com/Theo Von, TheoVon. Every little bit helps, man. So grateful to the donors, man. The Gunt Squad, people are contributing $10 a month to help out. It does mean a lot. We're going to be putting a lot of good stuff on there. So thank you. But last week we were talking about what's real, and a caller dropped this call into me, and I just want to play it for you guys so you guys have an idea of it just kind of put me on a good note, and I should have played it at the end last week, but I didn't. Here we go.
Hey, what's up, Theo? It's Michael from California. Hey, man, I just asked my girlfriend's father for his permission to ask her to marry me, and he gave me his blessing. Felt really good, man. It was one of those times in your life where it's just, asking a father to marry his daughter. That's, wow, man. I'm still thinking about it. It's like an honor, It's an honor. So, man, I'm pumped. Just got to go find a ring, man.
There you go. So, yeah, I just wanted to play a little bit of that call for you. I know we were talking about things that are real. We talked about friends and family and how that's something that's real. But just hearing that Michael right there, he went the old-fashioned route. Hit up the daddy cat, Because sometimes you got to scratch daddy's back if you want to play with his daughter's breasts, And we all know that. And nothing any different from Michael there making that move. Congratulations, Michael. That you got the dad's permission. Now you're halfway there. It's like you made the first, you hit the warp zone. Now you just got to get up in the castle and beat Big Bowser. You got to get that lady to be on time with you. And you're going to get that ring for her, and that's beautiful, man. That's beautiful. Congratulations. It's been a good week. It's been a good week for me. Everything's still cruising along. What else did I do this weekend? I went to Reptile. I went to the Morrissey. Did some shows. Had a nice conversation with Kevin Nealon at the Comedy Store. You remember him from SNL. Sweetest man. I mean, just a nice guy to be around. A gentle soul. That was good. And what else, man? Been struggling with the masty personally, dude. I thought things was going to be swelling. Usually, my masturbation flares up in the winter. My masturbation flares up in the winter, and I don't know why. I don't know if there's more full moons in the winter, or if there's more, stray animals. A lot of animals that run away from home in the wintertime. And I know that's, everybody pretty much knows that, but I think there's something innate in a man, when these animals are out and about and you're still, that makes us growl. That makes us want to just puff out our chests and just touch ourselves. And I guess that's something that was going on for me, man. I've just been struggling with it. And I know for some people it's not a struggle, but for me it is, man. When I get home and I got zero plans to masturbate, to touch myself or to pleasure myself. And then, 3 minutes and 40 seconds later, I find myself just waddling towards the restroom with my pants at my ankles, you know? And I got the Lord's, you know, I got the Lord's, you know, cinnamon drippings on the outside of my hands, you know, from doing dirty works to myself. It just makes me, you know, it's just not something that I want to be doing regularly. I mean, to be honest, I'm trying to not do it for a while. That's the thing. You know, I'd be okay with masturbating or doing touchy if I could take a break from doing it. But it's hard to quit, dude. It's hard to quit touching yourself. You know? I don't know. I mean, sometimes I feel like my dick has cigarettes in it. You know, because there's nothing that's harder. I don't know anything harder to quit. You know, or to take a break from. And I don't want to have to get a sponsor or somebody that, you know, watches me at night. That's crazy. But I'm thinking about it. I'd be lying to you if I didn't say I was thinking about paying someone to watch me at night for 2 hours, paying $50 an hour, just for, you know, 20 days or something. And I know you're like, well, that's $1,000. Yeah, it is. But it also will be 20 days of assurance where daddy, you know, ain't being all naughty with himself, you know, and ain't just making that fire water fly out of himself, you know, for no real reason. I mean, it's just, I don't know. I'm gonna quit talking about it because I don't want to think down about myself and have too much shame. But that's where I'm at, man. That's what's been going on. I got a lot of response from the Fighter and the Kid podcast. I did it. If you didn't get a chance to hear it, go check it out. That's with myself and Brian Callen and Brendan Schaub. I had a good time on there. And then I had a caller that gave a response to that, to my appearance on there, and a discussion that happened on there. And I want to check that in right now. Here we go.
See what's going on, man. It's Pat from Mobile, Alabama.
That's my boy Pat from Mobile, and Pat only has one leg, you know? He only has one leg, dude. Think about something that only has one leg, you know? Think about something. That's Pat. Onward.
You know, still fucking hating the hair, bro. But you know, you just gotta be better, man. Look in the mirror and say, I'm gonna be better. But I wanted to say though,
Pat, okay? People with one leg shouldn't throw stones, dude. You ever heard that? You know? Yeah, I got bad hair, dude. You know? I know it. It's humbling. You know, and if anybody should know about humbling, it's you, my brother. And I respect what you do. You know, I know you got, you know, you ain't all limbed up like a lot of people. And a lot of people are taking the easy way out. I know it. I know sometimes when I'm standing up on both of my fucking legs that I'm kind of a pussy. You know, I think about that sometimes. Sometimes when I'm standing on my legs, I'm thinking, well, damn, Pat's out there on one leg doing the same thing I'm doing. You know, aren't I taking the easy way out? And I recognize that, man, you know. We all have our things, you know, and I got the hair. It's humbling. So I respect your humble game by showing up, you know, with 3 limbs. So just respect mine, man. I know it's nasty. Dude, I know I look like somebody that sells fucking indoor waterfalls in Tennessee, you know? I know I look like somebody that models land. You know, I look like a supermodel at a fucking swap meet. I know I look bad, dude. You know? I know I look like the dude that always farted. You know? That's what this haircut does, brother. When you show up with this haircut, you are the dude that farted. Doesn't matter. But onward, Patrick, I do appreciate your call, man, and I love you, and I appreciate you calling down there from Mobile, Alabama. I got a beautiful half-sister and her family live over there near Spanish Fort. Onward.
You said you never been around a black man who's been nervous on The Fighter and the Kid.
That's true. Well, we had a discussion on The Fighter and the Kid the other day, and I actually had the same discussion with my buddy James the other day, where do black people get nervous? You know, and I know we all have nerves in our body, but when I think back in my life, I can't ever think of a black friend of mine telling me he's nervous. You know, I'm like, Jesus Christmas. Like, that must be awesome. Imagine not getting nervous. Like, it makes me think maybe that could be one of the reasons why a lot of black guys are better at basketball. Because every time I got the ball, I'm nervous as fuck. Imagine having no nerves and just being able to rely on your abilities. In any case, approaching women. My black buddy's always better at approaching women. Or I would say 90% of the time better at approaching women. And I can't think of, do black guys get nervous? And that's a call-in. We can put that at a call-in for this coming week. And this isn't I'm not thinking, if you're taking this as a race, I'm not making fun. This isn't, it'd be just like asking, trying to think up an idea or about any ethnicity or any type of gender, whatever. Do black people get nervous? And I'm going to talk to some black friends of mine as well and have them comment on this because I want to know. I want to get to the bottom of this. But that's what the conversation was on The Fighter and the Kid, and that's what Pat is calling about here. Pat, let's hear a little bit more.
And I got to tell you, man, there's two things that black gentlemen get nervous about, man. One are court sentences. You look at a black man's face during a court sentence, motherfucker, they're sweating goddamn bullets.
That's a good point, dude. That might be true. Wow, that's true, huh? That's pretty true, dude. Unless it's like, somebody who's like thugging or fronting, which no matter what color or ethnicity you are, then those dudes are always kind of like just being hard. But otherwise, I guess maybe that's an example of when black guys get nervous. Okay, onward.
Okay, I'm telling you, man. Don't go to Judge Judy. Go to the fucking C-SPAN type television, you know what I mean, like the real boring shit where you got an old ass judge. So that's one thing they get fucking nervous about: court sentences. Number two, fucking paternity tests. Man, I had so many people I know sweating, fucking over, hoping that DNA. Man, I know dudes who tried to fucking put bleach in the little swab joint, you got a swab for the DNA and shit, man, they try to put bleach on that bitch just so that DNA test comes out all types of fucked up.
Wow. So Pat knows some guys down there in South Alabama who were trying to bleach their way out of off of children's birth certificates, by disenfranchising the test that women take, that vaginal, swab factor that lets us know if the baby, if there's even a baby, I guess, Damn, that's gangsta. But that's two good examples. Pat. I appreciate that. And if you guys have an example out there, if you think that's a good question, there's some innate differences between people, in ethnicities and in genders, of course. But I remember the first time I noticed a real, intrinsic, or I don't know if intrinsic's the word, but a difference one time between me and a black gentleman. They had this boy in our town named Boo Boo Tyson, and his brother had set his leg on fire, and they used to call him Ashy because his leg was ashed up. And Boo Boo had the nicest smile in town, man. We played basketball together for a few years. We went to school together for a few years. Kind of like the town mascot. I don't think there was a person in town that didn't love Boo Boo Tyson. And Boo Boo Tyson, he had that leg was a little bit crisped up. So one of his legs was a little bit leaner than his other leg because it had been crisped. It had been crisped in a fire. And so Boo Boo was constantly carrying, different type of lotion, or things you would put on horses, stuff like that. Heavy lotion, intense lotion. Stuff you would pack that they packed ball bearings in on a car tire, like really real ass lubricants, I mean, this dude would crack open a Ziploc bag full of, shit that they used on the damn NASA space jet, things that could really, you could slick your hair back for probably about half a decade with some of this pomade, some of this heavy grip and heavy softener this boy carried. And he would polish that up into his leg. And this reminds me actually of, my step-grandfather D'Artagnan. And I talked about it last week when he would let us, put lotion into his legs. But anyhow, Boo Boo Tyson had that magic leg by us. And he used to ash that thing up, and he used to put special salves and softeners on his leg to, keep the fire, the afflictions of that fire out of his leg and away from everybody. I can't even remember what I was talking about there. What were we talking about? Well, I know Patty called in and said that he had that people had different issues. What else happened? Man, my brain's a little slow tonight, guys. It's midnight. Usually I try to get in record a little earlier, but I had to drive here to Laughlin today. What were we talking about? Boo Boo Tyson. Oh, well, here's the time that I noticed when Boo Boo Tyson, Boo Boo Tyson introduced me to one of the most unique moments that I ever had with a young black man. One of the first most unique moments I ever had with a young black man was we were riding in the back of the truck. Our basketball coach, Coach Steve, who he was a unique man, and he was driving us out somewhere to do some work. Down, we're both in the back of the truck, and he drove us about 60 miles an hour, probably about 15 minutes, and he comes to a stop sign out in the country. And we stop, and Boo Boo and I just couldn't even been able to talk because the wind had been going by so fast. We're just sitting in the back of an open truck. And Boo Boo looks over at me, and he said, "Man, what's it like to have your hair blow in the wind?" And that, for me, was one of the first times that I was ever like, wow, Boo Boo, he's never going to probably know what that's like, like not the same way I will. And so I just said, I said, well, what's it like to not have your hair blow in the wind? That was my, my answer really. And also just a question to kind of, to keep the conversation or just to make it, I don't know, just a retort that I had. That was my retort. But it was interesting because I'd never thought about that before. And that was one of the first times that I was like, oh, wow, there's just some people will have different experiences. As simple as something to have your hair blow in the wind that Boo Boo Tyson would never know about it. And at the time, I couldn't think of any of my black friends that would, or any black kids even in my town that had long hair. Because at this time, the only person that I knew that had a Jerry Curl type haircut was Raleigh Coleman, who was the vice principal at my school, at my junior high school, and who also used to sleep in the trunk of his car around lunchtime. And that was wild why he did that. And that could have been issues from birth, or maybe he got, he didn't want to be, he missed the womb or something. I don't know. But anyhow, so that was an interesting experience I had early on. But do black guys get nervous? Do black guys get nervous? If they don't, teach me how. Because most of my life is anxiety. But when I really think about it, I personally cannot think of a time that a black friend of mine ever said to me, "Man, I'm nervous." Can you? If you can, tell me, man. Hit the hotline, 985-664-9503. And we don't need anything, nothing racial or jarring like that. I'm not looking for anything like that, but I am looking for just some unique experiences. Or if you had a unique experience that showed you a difference between you and another ethnicity, something that was like unique, that really gave you a perspective, that adjusted your perspective or gave you a perspective a little bit. I'd love to know more. All right, let's move into another call that came in. Here we go.
Hey, Theo, this is Fausto speaking from Brazil.
Fausta from Brazil, man. And, it's amazing, man. I've had a young lady call from Saudi Arabia. I've had people from Ireland call from Britain. And the British, who we beat the British. And here we are, Fausta from Brazil. Onward.
Just want to say that I'm a big fan. I first saw you on Joe Rogan podcast, and ever since I watch this past weekend show.
Thanks, Fausta. I appreciate that, man. Dude, I saw Joe the other night in the hallway at the Comedy Store, and I got a little bit nervous around him. Sometimes I just get nervous around people, whether even, if I know him or not. And like he had so many, like a lot of fans were going up to him, and people love him. It's like, it's almost like for some people getting to meet, it's almost for some people it seems like they're getting to see I don't know, it's obviously like a celebrity to some people, but there's something else more than that. It's like they get to see a little bit of a guru or a family member that they haven't met or something. I don't know. There's something unique about it. The way that his fans like him. And I got kind of touched by it just watching that. It's nice to see people not enamored. I mean, there's that aspect, but there was something else. It's like they get to meet a little bit of a teacher that they, it's like as if somebody dug up Aristotle and was bringing his, and they, attached some muscles and tendons and blood and everything to his bones and got him clicking again. And then people showed up and like, were meeting him. There was some excitement in the air. So, but yeah, sometimes anyway, I don't know what I'm talking about. Let's hear a little bit more. Fasta from Brazil.
And I think it's awesome. You seem to be a pretty cool guy. And I'm just calling to say that it's a beautiful day here in Brazil today. It's Sunday, noon, and I'm watching your podcast, and I just thought about calling. I'm 38 years old, single, photographer here in São Paulo, big city, and I'm just about to do some mushrooms today because it's a beautiful day. I do that every once in a while.
Cool, Fausto. Well, look, man, I appreciate it. I knew I just want to play that call because it was from abroad, just to let you guys know that we got other people who are tuning into all of us, and that's pretty cool. Thank you, Fausto. Get them shrooms in you, bruh. Get your vision cracked out, Oh, man, I missed that. That's one thing I miss, bruh, is sprinkling those indecencies, bruh. Just, man, when you took on shrooms, life was like an 8-box of crayons, but when you had them shrooms in your dome, suddenly, boy, you was running on that big kit, that big 64. And that's one thing I miss and love about them mushrooms, bro. Just treating yourself with that fungus, getting that fungi-ungi up in your jungy, bro, up in your brain jungle, up in your thought penitentiary. Dude, man, there was nothing better than watching your eyes drip out of your skull in a bathroom mirror at a stranger's apartment. And then coming out of the bathroom and realizing it wasn't a stranger's apartment. It was your apartment. Man, that's one thing I miss about mushrooms, dude. Going out in the field and picking them. I saw one kid eat something one time in a field. It wasn't even a mushroom. It was something that a pig had coughed up, and he got fucking sick and had to go to the hospital for about 3 weeks. But you know what? Fuck him, man. If you're out eating mushrooms and you're eating other shit off the ground, dude, you're an idiot. Sometimes people are just an idiot, What else is going on, man? There's a lot of stuff happening with let's take one more listener, and then I'm going to get into, people are talking about some of these just men and female issues that's going on and some of the conversations that are going on here in the aftermath of the Louis C.K. issue. Let me take one more call here that came in. Here we go.
What's going on, Theo, man? Ryan from Pittsburgh here.
Ryan from Pittsburgh, man. I got pink eye one time up there in the Monongahela, and I got a blowjob up there behind the Giant Eagle, behind a chain grocer. And all a Giant Eagle is it's just a Kroger in disguise. That's all that is. But I got a beautiful blowjob up there one time, and I got pink eye. And onward.
Fucking take this job, man. I up and quit in the beginning of the week at my old job, so I started with no money. So, it's been a week at this new place. I'm paying for gas with change. Dude, I don't know if you know anything about paying for gas with change, but it's an embarrassing act that I've been forced to have to do almost every day. But I'm listening to you talk about rubbing lotion on this fucking old dude's leg. And thick water, and I'm just, it immediately pulled me out of my funk, dude.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it. Yeah, there's no better way to get to know a grandparent than by putting, or even a step-grandparent than by putting lotion on their body in a non-perverse way. And if you think I'm crazy, go do that. You may have an association with your grandparent now. Go put lotion on their arms or legs. Show them some tender love and some tender care. That's non-sensual. And let's see how much better you know them. But I appreciate it, man. I appreciate it. I'm glad that we can make you laugh by, and not be thinking about paying for gas with change. I've been there. I'm not there today. Thank God. I might be there again, but I'm not there today. But I have been there, and I commend you for, getting up, getting your gas, and getting where you need to go, getting to work. It sounds like that's what you're doing. So I appreciate that call. Let's hear another call here. Here we go. And then we're going to get into some of this other conversation. Yeah, the Louis C.K. issue is hot right now in Los Angeles. It's hot. And, Louis been stripped apparently of a lot of his opportunity. He came out with a statement. Louis C.K., a famous comedian, was accused of, I think there's 5 instances in the article that I've read so far. There may be new stuff. I don't know. There are 5 instances of sexual indecency. And that's just I don't know the exact term. That's the term I'm using. But, there's 5 instances where he asked people if he could jerk off in front of them. One of them said no, and he didn't. And then other people were like, yeah, or didn't say anything or laughed, and he kept going. And that's a wild thing, man. To be jerking off in front of somebody is brave. It's brave. But also, to be sitting watching somebody jerk off is, to jerk off somebody in front of, to jerk off in front of somebody is it's messed up. It's ballsy. It's fucked up. If they don't want it, if you're looking at them and you can tell they do not want that and you're continuing to do that, that's messed up. That's messed up. Also, to sit there and watch somebody jerk off when you don't want to be is kind of messed up. Like, leave the fucking room. Like, leave the room. Somebody's jerking off, dude, I'm out. You know what I'm saying? Like, knock, knock, who's there? Not me. I'm leaving. And I know there's some traumatizing instances and stuff, but if somebody's not blocking the door, adios, bro. And that's Spanish for I'm not watching you jerk off. I'm out of here. But that's big out here in Los Angeles right now, and a lot of men are afraid to speak anything right now. A lot of men are just scared. It definitely feels like a witch hunt in Los Angeles. It feels. Any instances of there's instances of like. Of just a man looked at me this way, or a man, a few years ago, a man said something kind of, rude, or, it's baffling. It's baffling, and it's scary. And I think a lot of the country probably is like, this is fucked up, whatever. A lot of people probably read the Louis story in the Louis article, and were like, yeah, it's fucked up, but it just seems like a, kind of a fucked up dude, kind of a pervy dude. I'm not surprised. Dudes can be pervy, and I'm not making excuses. I guess I'm just, like, some of it feels. Well, here's what I think is going to happen. I think in 3 years, Louis is going to have one of the biggest comedy tours ever. I was at the Comedy Store last night, and Neil Brennan is on stage, and he asked the crowd, if Louis was performing in the next room right now, would you guys pay to go see him? And 95% of the crowd clapped, like cheered. I think one unique thing about Louis being involved in this scenario is that he's so good at figuring out his own thoughts and making them into relatable conversation, or even conversation. Maybe the conversation isn't always relatable, but the humor and the conversation that he uses is revealing. And I think that it's going to be, I think that at least by him being involved in this, you'll be able to get, he's going to come back with one of the best hours of comedy ever. And of course, the industry has to distance themselves from him, the Hollywood industry and stuff like that, because they're all tied to advertisers and that sort of deal. But it's just gotten. I think it's gotten to the point, some stuff where some of this just like, when does how? I don't know. I guess I don't know what some of my thoughts are, man. But it just seems. It's just, it's definitely scary. It's scary in LA right now because there's, accusations of just fly up on Facebook every other day. And you have if you didn't do anything as a man and you get accused, that can be your ass. That can be your ass. It doesn't even matter. There's a governor in Alabama or some man that's running, and there's accusations against him of pedophilia. And obviously, not good, not cool. But with this day and age, who knows if somebody didn't just make someone say something, or have, find some person to say something to ruin a presidential election. It's like, You just don't know. I mean, we can't just go on accusations. And I'm not specifying on the the guy from Alabama or whatever, Roy Moore, but we just can't go on accusations. If we do, it's just like it's just going to turn into a witch hunt. And I guess it's scary for me because I'm a man, and we seem to be what's most popularly being hunted right now. And I don't think that's everywhere, but I do think that it's certainly like in a lot of liberal circles, and it's scary. And it's certainly by like a lot. It's scary, bruh. It's scary. Let me take this call right here. Here we go.
Theo, what's going on, pimpin'? It's your boy Aaron. I'm from the Greater Toronto area out there in Ontario, Canada. I just wanted to get your thoughts on a little situation. So basically, a girl from my past reached out to me. I used to talk to her in high school. So she always had a boyfriend, so I never had a shot.
Okay, so a girl from high school, she always had a boyfriend, you never had a shot. Onward.
And she recently just reconnected with me. She reached out. She messaged me on some social media outlet, and we've been talking and hanging out, and things are getting kind of close. And she tells me she has a boyfriend. She's been seeing him for 5 years, but that their relationship's on the rocks. So I don't know what to do here. I don't know how to handle this situation because I really care about this.
Okay, so, I mean, just to even listen to your own call right there, man, you're saying that there's this girl, she's always had a boyfriend, so she wasn't available. And then, and I appreciate your call, man. And then you go on to say, and now she still has a boyfriend, and it seems like she's still not available. Here's what I would do. I would put your hat in the ring. I would say, look, this is what I would like. And if she can do that, then do that and move on, and move forward with her, I'd say, look, I'd like to date you, But I think getting involved in this, but, if she's got both boyfriends, it's not going to be good. It's not going to end well for anybody, and that could ruin your chance of being with her. But you're saying she had a boyfriend, she wasn't available, and now she still has a boyfriend. So she's still really not available, And if you start off in that environment, you could, and then one day she leaves you for some other dude, you couldn't be that shocked, if that's how it started this way. But I put your thoughts in, say, hey, look, this is how I feel. This is what I want. If you're really into her. Now, if you're just trying to get a little bit of a zoom, then, take her to some coffee and keep feeling that out. See where you guys are. But if you really want to ride the open road and get that long-term vroom going with her, then maybe you just let her know how you feel and then take a step back. Let her figure it out, But look, it depends on how much of your time you want to waste. That's what I think. For me, that's what it would. But I appreciate your call, man. Let's take in another call right here. And this was a little bit more about what's going on with kind of men and some of their thoughts and stuff these days. Onward.
Howdy, Theo. This is your buddy Dylan Green from up in the Pacific Northwest, Bellingham, Washington.
Dirty Dylan Green from Billingham. Onward, Dylan.
Called a couple times. Love your podcast. Love listening to what you've got to say. You've been promoting this thing that you're doing that has to do with things concerning men and masculinity and how your listeners may feel as men and how we're treated and communicated with in America. And,
Well, yeah, I mean, we're in a tough time. I mean, we're certainly in a tough time, dude. Especially, I mean, like in Los Angeles, it is hell. It's hell, man. I mean, I'm afraid to even jerk off with my cat in the room, And I don't even have a cat. I do not even have a cat. But if I did, I'd be afraid. It's just a scary time out here. Now, I think in a lot of America, it's not like that. A lot of America, people are still like actually living and things are making sense. People are hunting Louis C.K. from 2005. He wasn't even a celebrity then. I mean, he was a good comedian, but he wasn't the Louis C.K. that we have today. So, I mean, people are witch hunting for sure. Some busted comedians, but I'm not saying what made him right, but it's like people are looking through things to witch hunt. And maybe the guy's a twisted dude. Maybe he's sick. I think if you were asking people to jerk off and you're, that's fucking just bizarre. I don't know, man. I mean, when I was young, my uncle would show everybody his dick sometimes, dude. We thought he was our uncle. We didn't think he was we thought he was a little bit pervy, but we didn't think he was a sick human. We thought he was our uncle, you know? But these people act like they never seen a fucking dick in the universe, like Louis broke out of a sack of kryptonite, I mean, leave the fucking room as well, I mean, I just don't like to the point where sometimes people are, it just like you're so affected because of what? Like you have you ever been around in the world where there's dicks around? Leave. It just some of it's just bizarre to me. But let's hear more what you have to say, man. And I'm in a little bit of a rough mood. It's midnight tonight, guys, and I know I should have gotten this done earlier, but I had to be on the road. But I am happy to be here with you guys. I'm just a little bit tired. Let's hear more.
So up here in the Pacific Northwest, man, we've got a lot of pretty heavy liberal politics, which, a lot of that I can get down with. But, man, I've been around a lot of these women, and I used to work in an office of 9 women. I was the only male. And just hearing these things from them of saying that the world just hates women and the world is always out to get down women. And when they say the world, it's kind of like their way of saying, well, like men are just out to get us. And the world is setting these precedents for beauty and how we're supposed to look. And meanwhile, I'm sitting back and thinking to myself, me and my buddies, we love women.
Yeah, look, I appreciate it. And the world is set, and they're like, the world is setting this precedent for how women are supposed to look. Men aren't setting that precedent. Whoever owns the media is who's setting the precedent. These magazines, they're not hiring. Look, I'll tell you this, dude. Attractive people are still getting most of the work in Los Angeles, Like, they'll be like, oh, well, Hollywood and the, magazine industry, stuff like that, media, they can be like, well, everybody should look however they want and everyone's beautiful and this and that. But then they're only taking mostly the prettiest, They ain't picking up the ugliest people and giving them work. 98% of the time, that's not what they're doing. So, I mean, I agree. It's bizarre. It's like, the people that are making that message are the same people that are then coming back and saying, who's making this message? It's the same people. Most normal people who aren't involved in that bullshit circle don't give a fuck. If you have a wife or a sister, you want them to feel good about the way that they look, no matter how they look. Most of us in the world are 8s or 7s. That's how we look. And we're okay, and we fucking deal with it. It's easy for some beautiful person to be like, everyone's beautiful. No, everyone's not. Most of us are 8s and 7s. You're fucking beautiful. Won't you come down here to 8 or 7ville? And then see what's crack-a-jacking. Onward.
Each and every one of us, we respect them. We enjoy their company. We're all seeking, for myself and my buddies who are single guys, we're seeking quality, authentic relationships with women. And none of us are telling these chicks what to wear or what to dress or how to dress. It's an interesting concept. And I sometimes wonder if some of these standards are really actually not created by men at all, but created by the expectations that women put on themselves and the way that they communicate with each other.
It's interesting, man. It's a really good point, and it's really well said, too. I mean, I wish sometimes that I was able to as clearly articulate some of my thoughts and feelings as you just did there. A lot of times it's not men that are making these demands or demanding anything. I mean, if anything, we just want to be able to fucking be alive these days. There's certainly this witch hunt, in the mainstream media where men are bad. And especially white men. Even though most of us didn't do shit. It's a tough time, man. It's a tough time to be a man. And it's a tough time to speak up about being a man. In a world where you're supposed to be able to say, be free, speak your mind, say your truth. Bullshit. Bullshit. Some dude tweeted earlier today, I cannot even believe this, right? My buddy sent me this on a text chain, right? This was a tweet by a guy, okay? I'm not even sure who tweeted it, but this was the tweet. Things I love to do to women. Listen to them. Believe them. Support them. Hire them. Be their friend if they want. Share their perspective. Tweet nice things about them. Amplify their voices. Thank them. Love them. In parentheses, how they want to be loved. Yeah, bro. You know? Yeah, that's true. Those are all things that we want to do for women. But that just sounds like such fucking pandering. Like, that's what you're doing every day? Well, you know, what the fuck, dude? You know, are you doing anything for yourself? You sound like a butler. You know? That's the thing these days. It's tough. It's weird. It's interesting, though. But it's also interesting. You know, it's interesting. Because, I mean, women have been, they have been looked down upon and thought of as a lesser sex for a long time. And I think that there needs to be some adjustment there. And I think this could be that correction period. You know, and I hope that it is. But I don't hope that comedy gets ruined because of this. And my hopes are that we can still joke, you know, and know what is a joke and know what isn't. That's one thing that I hope. But I appreciate that call, man. That's a lot of thoughts. And if some of you guys have thoughts on that as well, hit me up. I'd love to hear a little bit more on that. You know, or do you feel scared to be a man right now? Do you feel like a lot of these issues that are created out there, and a lot of these, you know, views of women and are created more by women, and then they are actually by men? You know, it's like women are just fighting these, you know, are playing both sides of the net. Do you? What do you think? You know? Or have men just been, you know, because it's tough. The tough thing is if you're not a bad dude. If you're not a bad dude, then this doesn't apply to you. But the problem is some of these things are so blanket that make it feel like it applies to everyone. And I know I'm all over the place tonight, man. I don't even think I'm being fucking funny, dude. Sorry. We're going to take one more call here, and then we're going to shut it down.
Hey, Theo. My name's Chris. I'm from North Carolina. I really relate to your comedy. I'd like to think of myself as a bit of a southern gentleman, not quite as with an exquisite accent as yours, but I do love listening to you speak.
Well, you got a nice accent there too, brother. You got a real handsome tongue in your head. Onward.
I have some problems with, I like to think, drugs and whatnot. I use marijuana as an agent to combat these things, and I was just kind of wondering how you feel. Like in North Carolina, it's illegal to use marijuana, but in California, it's medicine. How do you feel about that being something to help you get off alcohol and other things that aren't good for you?
Well, for me, I don't use marijuana. I don't use anything, you know. Does it suck? Yeah. I want to crack my brain open sometimes, dude, and eat the rib meat off of my fucking thought spheres. For sure, you know. I want to bust open my damn fucking brain stem, you know, and lick that rib meat off them thought sickles that are hanging out from the inside of my cranium. But I don't. You know, when I have so when I'm stressed or whatever, I just have to deal with it. I got to deal with my own thoughts. I have to deal with my own feelings. You know, and for me, that's what I need. Because the easiest thing for me to do is to hide from my issues. Man, my brain, whatever's inside of me, the problem that is inside of me, whatever it is lazy. And it is manipulative. It will manipulate me. And if I have a problem, instead of dealing with it or thinking through it or feeling through it, my brain will be like, oh, yeah, whatever, have a beer, you know, go do this, go do that, go to bed, take a nap, jerk off, look at porn, watch sport, do something, you know. Don't solve whatever this little thing is. Don't try and figure it out. Don't try to get help for yourself. You know, so for me, I don't use marijuana, you know. I'm not saying I never will. I'm not saying I'll always be this way, but for now, you know, I'm trying to live life on life's terms, man. I'm trying to look life straight in the eye when I have an issue. Now, you can't use it in North Carolina legally. People can in California legally. And I think it'll be legal everywhere in a couple of years. You know, so if you want it, you're going to have it. But I think that this is a time when a lot of men, this is a critical time, I believe, that when it comes to, you know, instead of grabbing a beer or grabbing a joint or a whip of coke, hitting one of them sheep tails, putting that fluffer nutter up your fucking face hole, I think it's time to sit and think, sit and feel, sit there. Why am I pissed? What's going on? What's got me, and figure it out. Get to the other side of it, so that way, if you are having a drink, having a joint, it's not reactionary and it's something you just want to do because you want to do it. Because that was my problem. I get reactionary. So I'm not a big proponent of that. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. If you're high as fuck right now, I don't give a fuck. I was over at Coco Diaz's podcast the other day. He's smoking weed in there. I don't care. I love that man to the end of the earth. I don't care what anybody else does, but I'm just saying for me, that's what I do for now. But it's up to you, man. It's up to you. But for me, I'll find too many excuses if I use other stuff right now. I'll find too many excuses, and right now I need to make less excuses for myself, and I need to at least work towards having a little bit more knowledge about what's going on inside of my thoughts and feelings and why I behave the way that I do, so that I can be on top of my behaviors and be a step ahead of them at times. Because a lot of times my behaviors are reactionary, and they're not. My first behavior is sometimes the first choice that whatever's wrong inside of me wants to make isn't always the best choice for me. So I need to be aware and be there. I'm going to take one more call here from this guy. He called in a couple weeks ago, and I really related to this call, and then we're going to get out of here. I want to get his thoughts out here. Here we go.
Hey, Theo. This is Chris. I emailed you earlier, said that I'm dealing with some stuff. So I'm going to do my best to explain what's going on. So basically, I'm kind of like you, like real similar upbringing. Didn't really have like a dad around. Kind of had like a mean mom.
Thanks for calling, Chris. Thanks for sharing. Let's hear more.
So about like my feelings or whatever, how to talk to girls, basically how to express my feelings towards girls. So.
Oh, man, that was the bane of my existence. I didn't realize it until recently that was what caused a lot of my issues. Was that I was afraid to talk to women, and that fear just resonated inside of me. Let's hear more.
I always kind of had like a said that I was too nice. She was running around with my friends after that.
Okay, so you had a girlfriend. She was too nice, but then you were too nice, and she started running around with your friends. Let's hear more.
And that kind of like made me want to change myself, so I started to try to be a little bit more edgy, started drinking, started smoking, started partying, and that worked. I got a little bit more popular, but it didn't really help, like, with girls. I mean, most of the time I would end up, like, sleeping in the bushes or something like that instead of, getting a girl.
Yeah, so you weren't getting the girls, so you started being a certain way. Oh, I need to drink more. I need to, use drugs or do something but to get the girls. Yep, that's most dudes, so that's okay. But yeah, I was exactly that way, man. I didn't know who I was, so I just knew that whatever I wasn't okay because women didn't like me. And the main reason that I felt that way was because probably, in hindsight, I felt like somewhere inside of me, I felt like my mother didn't really like me, probably. And I know that's a big jump for some people listening to this, but that's, as I learned more about myself, I realized that I never, that if I thought my mother didn't like me, and I didn't feel that relationship with her, then I didn't really know how to relate to women. Because that's your first relationship for a young man. And if my relationship with her was kind of damaged, then, my relationship with all women was probably going to be at least, off to a rocky start because I didn't know even how to begin one. So once women weren't recognizing me well or it wasn't working, then yeah, of course you adjusted yourself. You party, now you smoking, you laying in the bushes, you living life. Let's hear more.
To come home with me. And that just kept escalating, and my mother wasn't having it. She ended up kicking me out the house. After that, I ended up living in a shed for about 6 months. And that's when things really got dark.
And this is kind of a tough call to hear, I'm sure, on a Monday or whatever. If some of you guys are still, if you guys are listening to the episode. But, this is life, man, and this is what's going on. And Chris called about 10 days ago, and this call really meant a lot to me because I could relate to this a lot, Chris. I could relate to a lot of the things you're sharing because I felt a lot of these same ways. All I wanted to do was feel the affections of a woman somehow. And not even sexual. I just wanted a woman to think that I was okay. Because for some reason when I was a kid, I don't know what happened. I don't know. It was before I was even able to know what was going on. I felt like my mother, our connection was not good. And I felt somewhere like I was not okay. She didn't think I was okay. Something was not okay. She did not accept me. Or I felt unaccepted by her. So immediately then, every other woman I immediately meet, I already feel unaccepted by them. So then I change myself. I start being different ways, acting outlandish, acting this way, being loud, being goofy, whatever, something to alter that interaction, something to try any code I could to crack this comfortability with women and make it feel more comfortable. And then, and my mom and I's relationship, of course, was never really getting strong. I got emancipated. I went out and was living with friends. Thankfully, I didn't have to live in a shed. I was pretty blessed that I had some good friends and different families that took me in. But let's hear more about your story. I'm just saying it's right alongside. Let's go.
I had always kind of been like a little bit depressed because, I didn't really have like a person in my life. Like I was alone basically. So when I was in that shed, things got real dark. I would just stay up all night doing drugs and porn probably 4 times a day, maybe more than that.
Jeepers, dude. Ugh, if I have to watch porn twice in a day, I feel horrible. I don't even do it. But I'm a one-trick pony anyway when it comes to sensuality, whether I'm doing self-pleasure or actual sex. If I'm doing sex. Let's hear more.
And that went on for like 6 months. And this was a year ago. But yeah, man, so I got like some dysfunction going on with me. The crazy thing is that like, in order to heal myself and to get better, to do is to get out there and meet somebody and get into a relationship and start getting out there. But it's hard because, like I said, I don't have that drive. I don't have the libido. I don't wake up in the morning and just have that fire inside of me.
Cool, man. Well, look, Chris, I appreciate you calling, man. I really do. Like 1,000,000%. I appreciate you calling. Like 1,000,000%, dude. And, you're not alone. A lot of guys have a lot of similar feelings and a lot of similar issues, man. Let's hear the end of your call because I just feel bad about cutting you off.
And plus, I'm like really, I have low self-confidence just from, I still kind of see myself as like that homeless dude jerking off in the shed.
Yes, you have your view of yourself probably isn't always good, it sounds like. Man, I'm sorry, dude. I appreciate you sharing this. I really do. And I hope that by hearing this back and listening to some of this, you're able to kind of get a little bit, maybe just a little more perspective on yourself. Here, I got to plug this thing in really quick. Hold on 1 second. Oh, wait, never mind. The plug-in's right here. Hold on. Sorry, my computer's on like 1%. Okay. Yeah, look, man, I can relate to this 100%. I really can. Self-worth is low. And a lot of that probably, and look, I got to tell you, I'm not any therapist. I have no idea the shit I'm talking about. I don't have any medical background. I have no idea. The only thing I know is that when you tell me your story right there, Chris, that I have heard your story or parts of it inside of myself, and I've lived through some of your story before. Maybe not exactly, but I have not had anyone call where I could relate as much to someone call. And the thing that helped me, I'll be honest with you, was getting into a program, dude. It really did. It helped me. It really helped me. I don't know if you need a program, if you need an AA or an NA or a CA, I have no idea. I don't know if I'll be involved in that program forever, but for now, I know that program has helped me get a better look at myself to know who I really am, And it's hard, man. I've had to learn slowly to be vulnerable in relationships so that I can even build a connection with a woman. And this is slow stuff, dude. It's slow. And it takes work. But you can feel better. I promise. You know, and that's all I can tell you, man, is that you can feel better. And relationships that haven't been good or whatever will get better. And that somebody can love you and you can love somebody else. And, you know, and I can't tell you what, you know, I can't, you know, you can't tell somebody to go get in a program, but you can just, I can tell you that for me, it's changed my life, you know, and sometimes that's hard for me to even admit because sometimes I'm so like self-centered or so, you know, afraid to admit that anything other than me has changed my life because I'm so used to doing everything for myself, you know, but when I'm really honest, yeah, man, that program has changed my life. I have a constant base of men and other people that I can go to every day to learn how to live in any moment. If I don't know something to do, there's somebody I can call. There's 40 people I can call. Say, hey, what do I do right now? And they're like, this is what you do. And these are people that I trust and know and love. And I know that they love me. And bam, I do that. Because those are the things you don't get when you don't have like that relationship with a mother, relationship with a father. You don't get those. You don't know. No one ever teaches you anything, you know? And it's hard to teach yourself anything because you're so busy just trying to survive, you know? So sometimes it's hard to learn. But I love you, man. Keep your head up, you know? Keep your head up, dude. You'll get to your paradise city, man. We all going to get there. Whether it's somebody that wants marijuana out there in North Carolina, you know, whether it's the guy in the Pacific Northwest that just wants to be able to share his feelings with a woman, but's afraid even if you can't even talk to a woman anymore without getting shut down. But I don't think that's going to be forever, man. We just got to just hold the line. Hold the line. It's okay. We're going to be okay. The man that's out there paying for gas with change, dude, you're going to be paying for gas with dollars soon, brother. But hey, dude, it's funny. You called in, man, and you made me reminded me of when I used to pay for gas, man, roll in there with a hot sock full of nickels, fucking drop them on the counter, walk out. That's their issue then. You brought the change, but they going to have to count that shit, you know? But yeah, it can be funny, man. Laugh at that shit next time you're paying. Your paradise city can be wherever. They got a fella, just think about it, dude. They got a fella out in Brazil, one of us, eating shrooms, dude. A 38-year-old single man dropping a voicemail like this is a dating website, but at the same time letting us know that he's about to blast off. He's about to let his inner Buzz Aldrin hit the stratosphere. And that's beautiful. Tiny Sand, who is still hitting the email box. I don't even know the motherfucker. If you have any idea what Tiny Sandhu may look like, or not, or just guessing, what is a Tiny Sandhu? Drop me an email. TheoVon@mac.com. Hit me with that sketch, that artist rendition of some Tiny Sandhu. And I'll see if I can incorporate some of them into the episode on Thursday. Maybe I'll put the pictures in at the end of the video or something on the YouTube. You can find us here. Subscribe. Please tell your friends. This episode, honestly, wasn't one of my favorites in a lot of ways because my energy is a little bit low. But it meant a lot to me that you guys called in and hit the hotline this week, 985-664-9503. And I'm going to keep coming back, you know. I'm going to keep coming back and doing this because you guys keep showing up for me. And I promise you it means a lot. We stick together in this shit, you know. We stick together. You know, fuck it. The world's going to do what it's going to do. This shit's all, you know, if you stay off the news, a lot of the shit's more chill, dude. I laugh. Trump does crazy stuff. I think Trump's fucking hilarious. Trump is hilarious, dude. You know? Politicians never did anything for me anyway growing up. I think all these politicians are shit. They're buying out Bernie. They fucked Bernie over. All of these politicians. They just rich, man. They rich. They doing rich shit. Ain't thinking about us. They doing rich shit, dude. So we take care of ourselves. We take care of our kind. We take care of each other. And I appreciate you being here for me, man, on this past weekend. I'll see you guys. We got a Thursday edition coming out this week. We got a producer coming in, a new producer Wednesday night. This boy, So we're going to see how that works. And thank you to everybody that called in and offered producership. I'm still emailing some people out. Going to do some trial runs here and there. See if, maybe we need somebody on a Sunday. Maybe we need somebody on a Wednesday. I still have to get back to a few emails. It's just been kind of a crazy week. I saw some tarantulas fucking though, bruh. And that's something I always wanted to see. Hit the hotline with some of the thoughts. If you ever had a black friend get nervous, hit the hotline if you're a scared man out there. Fuck, I'm a white man. I feel like they're trying to kill me.